Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Episode 326, We're Going Green. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know, and soon-to-be member of the Third Army.
Hey, how come I get to be a Third Army?
I don't want to do it.
Okay, well, I'll take one for the team.
That's right. On this episode, we're going to be talking about two more of the Zero issues from, actually, this will finish off our Green Lantern-related Zero issues, as we discuss Red Lanterns number 0 and Green Lantern New Guardians number 0. Then we discuss issue 13 of Green Lantern Corps, New Guardians, and Red Lanterns as we look at the kickoff to the rise of the Third Army. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up, we're going green this episode, you can pick up Green Lantern Corps, Red Lanterns, all those books that are $2.99 each. They're 40% off, only $1.79 each month. If you're buying a lot of books or trying to expand your reading experience, DCBService.com is the place to shop at 40% off. Think about that. Every single title you're buying at 40% off. Think about the amount of extra books you could be reading or trying out from across comics. DCBService.com is definitely your comic book pre-order source. Make sure to check them out. Not only can you get the regular editions, you can also pre-order variant editions from the website as well. They also have statues, toys, anything you can possibly imagine is available from, it's in the previous catalog, it's available at DCBService.com in a discounted form. Remember, they are a Comixology digital partner. Anytime you do digital purchases on their website, you earn 5% of that digital purchase in credit towards shopping at DCBService.com. So if you're mainly doing your purchases digital, do yourself a favor, buy them from their website. You're building up a credit that you can use towards any of the purchases on their website. So it's like getting extra money for purchases you're already making anyway. It doesn't cost any more to buy digital through DCBService.com. So please support our sponsor because they support our show. Over at InStockTrades.com, you want to check out, they've got an amazing deal going on the Absolute Sinestro Corps War from the Green Lantern series. It's the hardcover. It's 40% off, regularly $99.99. You can get it at $59.99. I don't know if you've gotten any of these Absolute editions. I am a huge fan. They're oversized, which is definitely, for the spectacular art that's available in the Green Lantern universe, the way to experience that artwork and storytelling. And this one contains Green Lantern 21 to 25, Green Lantern Corps 14 to 19, Green Lantern Sinestro Corps War Special number 1. And it's a cool way if you have not read this story, or maybe you did read this story and want to experience the artwork the way it's meant to be shown. Be sure to check out that Absolute Green Lantern Sinestro Corps War hardcover from InStockTrades.com. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, so not only do you get that book for $59.99, you don't pay for shipping. So remember to consider trying out InStockTrades.com. I am a big fan of how both DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com handle packaging. My books come pristine. So please do yourself a favor and try out those services if you haven't already. Oh, Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Jim, for our first chat today, we're going to be doing this casual Green Lantern chat to talk about the Zero issues that we haven't gotten to yet, but also this big Rise of the Third Army event. And it's really interesting because I was hoping this event was going to be what it is, where you can read the books in any order. You're seeing how this Third Army event is affecting the Red Lanterns in the Red Lanterns book, the New Guardians in the New Guardians book. And to me, it's great because the story's being moved forward by these events as well, but you're getting complete tales that are gripping inside those particular titles. And I'm really, really digging that aspect of this event so far. What's your overall take on the kickoff of the Rise of the Third Army?
Oh, I'm really digging this. I like the fact that, because right before we started recording, we were just saying, hey, let's go Red Lantern first, we can get the other stuff. And it was because there's not a part 1, part 2, part 3. And it's more of an open face story that you're getting. Right now we're getting the Red Lantern stuff. And if I was only reading Red Lantern, I'd be okay with it. I'm getting a really cool part of the story here, and it's getting a complete story. Now, as the Third Army goes on, there may be more of an interconnection and more of an interlinking. Mm-hmm. But right now, just this opening, this is just, here's your taste. Here's what's going on. It's, there's no definite, you must read this part first, this part. And I like the freedom of the read.
I also like that I feel like my story hasn't stopped in those particular titles. Like, I've become very attached to certain characters in those books. And I don't feel like, okay, we've got an event now, so because we got an event, storyline stops. When event's over, storyline continues. Everything in this Green Lantern universe is so tight that everything in all the books led to this point, and they're just going to keep continuing on afterwards. Comics, I read them because they're serialized storytelling. So I want to feel like, I don't like that disjointed kind of like, bam, okay, we stop storytelling here. And I think this is something that comics in general have gotten a lot better at with events. They plan for them early. The creators and books that are involved know about it early. They can lead into that. They can still have in this big event the character development, the depth of storytelling, progressing more using this event to increase that understanding of those characters. And that's something for me. I think the Red Lanterns book has really shined here, because we're going to start talking about Red Lanterns number 0. I thought this was just a really great look and introduction into telling me more about who Atrocitus is, letting us know that the history we think Atrocitus has had is, because I had no idea he had this rich background that went back so much farther than even the Green Lantern Corps, where he was this entity, part of this group of 4 that we see in this origin issue, that I just thought was fantastic. This is a great 0 issue for me, because it took Atrocitus to a whole new level for me. I always thought Atrocitus was cool, but this kicked it beyond that.
It was neat seeing some of the beginnings of the fall of the Manhunters. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders if it was these mean little children picking on them. How would you feel if someone just keeps walking up, yeah, you're stupid, you're ugly? They finally had enough. And that was the final snapping linchpin. I'm actually kind of on Team Manhunter's side right about now. I think, maybe the people had it coming.
You look a little Manhunter-ish. Like, I saw you yesterday. I honestly, I'm going to say now that I didn't notice this yesterday, but you had very much the same demeanor as the Manhunter on the opening page when I saw you yesterday.
Well, the kind of week I've had at work, yeah.
I liked the family aspect, because I think it's really important if you're going to build this kind of sympathy and this kind of bond with a character like this. Because, Atrocitus, when he was introduced to us, came off very much as a villain. He was, we're rooting for the Green Lantern, so obviously anybody who is an adversary to them, you don't root for. Well, gradually as we've gotten to know the character, there is a sympathy for what led to this deep emotion of rage for him. I thought this laid it out better than anything previously.
Big time.
Seeing him with Traka and seeing him with his family in general, and what happened with the Manhunters and how they finally turned and how they saw the seeds of this happening. This was something that was happening on their news. And there comes a point where you're watching the news and hoping it doesn't come home. And I think this is something we all can relate to, with tragedy in the world, that then all of a sudden you see that tragedy in the world start coming closer and closer and closer to home. And I think in countries across the world, these are things that happen. And when you see a story like this that tugs at those kind of strings, and you can have like a real connection to it, to me, it bumped up the game of this book and Atrocitus in general, and what rage really means and where it comes from, and how you can understand those emotions. Because I think that's something that's been the key in the Green Lantern books, is understanding how these characters can wind up in their respective emotional spectrum.
Oh, big time. And the one thing that I liked, I want to call them human moments, even though they're not human, obviously, but it was just that they're sitting around dinner and discussing. Like, I tell you, it looked like there was hate, and and just the husband-wife conversation, even something as simple as, is it me or are these orbs a little chewy today? Just, you can see, people just having a normal, just family reaction, family discussion, and it's that personalization moment of it. Because before this, we never really saw Atrocitus as a human or as a non-entity of pure rage. We get to see just the birth of that rage. We get to see where it's coming from. And before this, he was a quote-unquote normal guy. And I liked seeing that. I liked the fact that he wasn't always a monster. He wasn't always, he wasn't like a criminal who did this. No, this was a regular, everyday guy like you and me who had just extremely beyond extreme just circumstances happen to him. And it's not just, I didn't get a promotion, that guy cut me off. No, this was something just beyond that was the birth of that rage, and you needed something to that level.
Now, the funny thing is the kid knows, and the kid, because even the wife talks about this, how these are androids. They're not thinking these are real creatures with caring emotions and things like that. They know that they're androids. What happens, though, I mean, like, the whole jaywalking thing with that kid who is, forgot the appropriate hand signals to cross. I mean, at what point in time you sit there and start saying these things start snapping? Do you start building a rocket ship a la the, Jor-El and his family and say it's time to get off of our planet?
Yeah, that's let's get the heck out of here immediately. And for me, I'd probably, as soon as that first news story hit, if this planet, I don't know what type of, it doesn't look like their intergalactic travel is a normal for them. So I would be, okay, let's find a hiding spot. Let's dig down deep. Let's do the storm cellar, hide it out, hope they leave, and hope you can hide from them. But no one escapes the manhunter, so that probably would only just delay my death. Whereas I love the fact that he rises up and he raises, he goes after him, and he's killing manhunters with his bare hands.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
That shows just how far the rage has gone. One of the things I really liked about that sequence and where it pays off for me, it doesn't mean as much if you don't see those simple, quaint moments with his daughter, with his wife. Those are things that really start building this bond of who this guy is and how much these people would mean to him. Bruce Wayne's parents' death. The best story where they do that in the comics are where they develop some form of relationship with dad and mom or one or the other ahead of time. I really liked in Batman Begins the development of the relationship with dad, where you got to see how dad was this guy who was there for him and gave him advice and made him feel good in situations where he would normally feel bad. Why do we fall? Those type of
so
things.
We can pick ourselves up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those moments were really great. And then it meant more when Alfred referenced that later, because you knew that those were moments where he fell down that well. And, Dad's saying, hey, this is our chance to get ourselves back up again, to keep going and keep Bruce from falling into the darkness. And I think that's what led Bruce to have that character development. This love for his family in Atrocitus' case, or Atros' case, really showed how this guy would have this real deep rage that cannot be sated. His family, his whole life, friends, associates, whatever, even his enemies were gone. Your whole reason for being has been wiped out. And I love when you see these onlookers who are looking for that focus, these godlike beings, and they see this guy who's so focused on one intent. I mean, you can't get more focused than a guy who has lost everything and all that's left for him is his rage towards those that caused it. That's a singular vision. That is a path that these can latch onto like a beacon. And it made so much sense. And that was the thing I thought that was really cool about this development, is I really feel like I understand why Atrocitus was chosen out of all the beings in the universe that they could possibly choose to latch onto. This storyline makes a lot of sense to that. And then how this led to Atrocitus really taking a more major role in molding and guiding the four beings' direction. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, that's, again, it's showing just how tough and nasty this guy is. And it's even beyond just nasty, physical presence, which is, surely amazing, but it's just his, his strategy, his planning, his, the commitment he has to what he's doing. Once he's first introduced to this group, they're, smacking him around as if it's nothing. But as time goes on, they go from being the 4 to the 5. And then as it slowly, kills him off, and he becomes the one, and he's got all the power in him. But it's not even just about him conquering them. It's about just the purpose, his mission. It's about, the end game of destroying the Guardians. And I need all this power to do this. But it's not even just greed that he needs the power. It's literally, he knows he needs the power to do this. This is the only way his prophecy that he saw is going to happen. And the level of commitment to him was just, again, there's a great character insight into who he is and why he's doing what he does.
With the 5 inversions, that moment where he has to mold his concept of love, and really use that emotion to get the one female, I guess, and female, I don't know, teeth in the belly. Does that count as bling? I don't know. And the squid face. I don't know. It was something I really liked his inner dialogue of, he had reasons why he was doing this, but it was clear it wasn't enough to pretend to give that emotion. You had to learn to really give that emotion, and it jaded his view of that emotion, which for him, it was worth doing. And honestly, it doesn't seem like he's giving much thought to doing that because he's lost every reason to hold on to it as he knew it before. Now, just jading that and reshaping that is, in a way, reinvigorating and refocusing and re-influencing his rage and his direction. His power as an individual, it's a sad story, horribly sad story, because his power as an individual comes from the fact that he was so able to cast off everything else that would be an emotion driving him. And that was something, that sense of purpose from him really defined this core in a way that sets it apart from the other ones. And you need to do that. If you're going to go with these color spectrums and you want to keep them interesting and you want to keep us as fans following them, whether they're doing guest appearances in one of the titles or they have their own book, like in the case of Red Lanterns, you've really got to make them set apart and unique and interesting and valid. And this really feels that way for me. I just really loved that, because that sequence in itself got very cerebral and psychological, and I really liked how that played out.
Yeah, for me, that was a little bit on the creepy side of him just, just seducing her for the power, but it was just the way, you're looking at it. And I was just like, what the heck's going on here? And then it gets to that final panel where he's like, love. The very idea of love has been killed. I was like, oh my God. This is, again, it's beyond everything that you could, I'm not surprised with what we've seen from the guy, but it's just that notion of going from that guy who was hanging out with his wife talking about the chewy orbs to this guy who seduces the demon seed of Sector 666 for her power. I'm like, whoa, that's okay. That's a very big dramatic change for this guy.
One of the things that when he meets that Guardian, and the Guardian's appealing to any sense of compassion that he might have, any sense of hope that he might have, these are emotions that mean nothing anymore to Atrocitus. Are they still there on some level? Maybe, but they're really just, you can't dust them off because it's so caked on so thick because they're unused. It's really all about his mission, and destroying this Guardian, whether it means something good or bad for the universe, is irrelevant. It's all about his cause, all about his purpose, all about him having an opportunity to see his prophecies. It's funny how that pivotal moment allows him for the first time to open up that he's the one that's going to destroy the other 4 aversions. He knows that. If you're sitting around your friends, your colleagues, your gang, your team, and you see that you've wiped them all out, usually it's enough for a person to have second thoughts. There's none of that with Atrocitus. His time with the 5 inversions have actually been very productive for his goals. So the sense of loyalty for him is gone in this case. If I'm supposed to destroy them in order to take the power that I need, then that's what I need to do. And just does it. He lets those things unfold and then encourages them when the opportunities present themselves because of his belief in the prophecy. I'm a firm believer that if there was such a thing as this, seeking out prophecies and stuff like that, I don't know that I really genuinely believe that people see the future and stuff, but if that did exist, and I was to see that I would turn on those others that were close to me, friends, things like that, you would think you'd fight against that, like change the prophecy in another direction so you don't have to do that. There's no turning back for him when it comes to those that are or not close to him. I don't know how you would call those relationships.
Yeah, it's the statement of who he is and where he's going from. Because if I was sitting there and I had a prophecy that, for me to do this podcast, I would have had to kill you, I probably, would have first found a new co-host, and gotten everything in line up for the the next batch. But still, I would have tried not to kill you. I would have tried something else. I would have seen if there's some other route I could have gone. With Atrocitus, he knows what it's going to be. He knows where it's going through. And the thing that got me was the fact that the code, the oath of the Red Lanterns, with blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead. It's talking about the blood he's taking from his pals, from the inversions. It's not just about taking from, from that the Red Lantern has to be freshly dead, to become a Red Lantern. No, it's about the fact that he's taking the power from these people who are now dead, who are his friends, who are his confidants, who are his, partners in, crime and whatnot. And I thought that it kind of took a whole new meaning for the oath to me. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. The great part is he sees in this prophecy of creating his, we see him don the Red Lantern outfit. He becomes Atrocitus. This event, this death of all of these beings and taking their powers lead to him developing the Red Lantern power battery, developing the Atrocitus persona, becoming that. Evolving into that. Everything he was before in that moment was gone. It really is all about being Atrocitus now and unleashing his rage on the universe in an attempt to destroy the Guardians. This is an interesting prelude. I think this is a great Zero issue to do here, because we're going to talk right now about issue number 13, and you got to really take a look at where this guy came from to understand what he's going to do when he finds out the Guardians are behind this. Because he's seeing it happen again on a much larger scale. This Third Army is absorbing things around him, his own Red Lanterns. It's absorbing the woman that he just saved or, is getting revenge for. The cool part was the way this story plays out in this issue. It's one of the things I'm really liking about Peter Milligan's writing of this book. You set up, I thought this girl was going to become a Red Lantern. You know what? Admittedly, I know totally what's happened to their power battery. I know totally that, they aren't in a place right now to do that. But I felt like the story is doing the typical, same thing we saw with Rancor. You're developing this really rich, detailed story of a need for revenge, a need for rage to be brought down on those who have persecuted these two sisters. And the one's the prettier sister who's taken along because she's a little bit more meek and will dance for them and all that stuff. Her other sister's trying to support each other in a horrid situation. A horribly sexist situation. And I really liked how this story played out, how you get real sympathy for her, and you start to feel rage for what's happening to her, especially because we're riding along with her and her internal dialogue. That was a really good move in how you handled this, setting us up for this, which bleeds into then what's going on with the Third Army. But I really loved and enjoyed this story for that aspect, because I wanted to see her become a Red Lantern and take it out on this crew. And we're not going to see that from her.
Oh, big time. And as soon as they introduced these characters, I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, the one's going to become the Red Lantern, the other one's not going to be. There's going to be some retribution here. There's going to be some pain and suffering. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And yeah. I was exactly the same thoughts you were going with this. And it was funny for me, when I saw the Third Army show up, the first thought that popped in my head was, if you remember, when the weakened Red Battery was also even an ultimate, Guardians plot, was also a ultimate thing that the Guardians did against him. So it's the Guardians are making multiple attacks on on all the different color cores to weaken them, to get them ready for the Third Army. So once he puts two and two together, and he's gonna know it's the Guardians almost immediately. I'm betting after he starts, taking out the rest of these agents that are at his, right now, he's gonna know it's the Guardians who sent him. He's gonna know it's them, and that's just gonna add to the fuel to the fire. So I'm so looking forward to seeing the Guardians get their butt kicked. I'm rooting for Red Lanterns. I'm rooting for Yellow Lanterns. I'm rooting for everybody who's anti-Guardians right now. And it's really cool spot. It makes for a really fun read for me just because I have such a hatred towards the little blue guys.
Well, I think I so wanted to see this girl get her retribution that I felt denied in the way that we see Atrocitus denied. Like, I understood Atrocitus when he came down, and that's what I thought was so great about the setup. When he came down there, I wanted what he wanted. She was destined, through her path, to become a Red Lantern, except for the battery. So, on so many levels, this works to really put us in a direct understanding for why Atrocitus feels the way he does when you give us that sympathy for this independent person from the story before. I thought that was really clever. It just, to me, I really appreciated the development of this issue in particular because I felt Atrocitus is not a character I normally see myself. I'm not a rage kind of person. But I thought the story did a great job of taking anybody where you're at and putting in an understanding of what would lead to that emotion and how it works here. And I thought that was really just brilliant.
Yeah. I really like when we see Atrocitus is more about vengeance than rage, or some people will call it justice. It's a funny line between what is justice, what is vengeance, what is right and wrong, where you're dealing with such the way they're being treated. This young girl who's a sweet and innocent girl whose family was slaughtered, her sister was cut down right in front of her, and she's made to dance for these monsters. And she's like, okay, and she just wants to run away. She just wants to get away. She could have drugged them and then killed them in their sleep. That's not what she did. She took off and ran. And then she finds refuge, she's like, just for one night with these people. And what happens? The husband turns them in and turns in his own wife to them. Said, take her too. She's hiding him. I'm not. How much money do I get for this? And I love the fact that the husband got a little bit of, there was some vengeance there and some justice for the wife who was killed. I love seeing that this isn't just about rage and hate and anger. There is a reasoning behind the emotion. Well, there's a reason behind the draw.
You would think that the rage, the purpose of vengeance or your quote unquote justice is on some level to try and sate the rage. To feed the rage in many ways. That's as people, we tend to find ways to. If we're raging at something, to balance the scales. And it would make sense that this core would be one that, unfortunately, they balance them to such an extreme level, that it's, is it considered balance anymore or moral? Or and it covers all those gray area lines where you can understand what would lead a group to this path. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. You understand it. Because I don't. I mean, I'm not, woof. I'd have to go through. I guess you have to go through something as horrid as they do to be pulled into all that. And I really like how you can understand it without feeling this desire or need to be a part of it. And I think that's something that's interesting about them, especially with them being more of a villainous group. It's really not fair to compare it that way. It's just interesting and unique because of all this.
Yeah, there are moments where I can actually completely understand and sympathize and agree with what's going on with them. And that's the weird thing. I've had moments of just that rage where I was crying out and I was just angry and just it's a long, lengthy story that I'm not going to share here. But there's been moments where I was just angry at the universe. And angry because it wasn't even anything that happened to me. It was something that happened to somebody else that was just like, you're powerless to stop it. You're powerless to do anything. Like, what the heck is wrong with this? And you just want to just smash the world because it's just such a wrong thing that something so horrible could happen to such a wonderful person. And I see those moments. And it's part of the reason I love this book so much is because I get that flash of anger, that pure moment of just that pure rage. But it's not just rage. It's vengeance. It's righting the wrong. There's what you could consider noble principles that just because of the darkness, because of the hate, it goes beyond just seeing justice done. This isn't about justice. This is about vengeance. This is about that nastiness of answering nasty with nasty. And I love seeing that, and I love the conflict. And it's one of those things about this title that I'm so glad Red Lanterns have such a different taste and different feel to them than any of the other cores.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. One of the things that I really liked in this issue, too, speaking of character development, was Scorch. Because, there's so many Red Lanterns in this series, and I don't feel like I know, and it's not a weakness of the series, I think it's just a group that you don't get to know as intimately as others. I mean, it's only been 12 issues, since the reboot of this series. We've seen Bleeze, a lot of focus in the series on Bleeze. And I really liked getting to know her. I liked, both before and after Flashpoint, seeing her team up with Kyle Rayner and stuff like that and get in these groups. This is a character that really, for me, has been interesting. Now you're taking characters like Scorch, who I don't remember. If you remember seeing her before, I'm sure she's been there. I just don't remember her, knowing that she probably has been in this book before, but now seeing her spotlighted and these powers that she has to use this acid-based thing to just, decimate the face and body parts and whatever of her victims, really setting the tone in this issue for how powerful she is, that, the other Red Lanterns kind of hold off and back away from her a little bit because they fear her power, or at least respect it enough that they're standoffish to it. That was something that I really dug, because then when the Third Army shows up and we see them tear off her arm and overtake her, it means more when you have this instantaneous establishment of how powerful she is, seeing what she did to the wife's husband, or the other creatures when she was coming down there. That was something that really I just enjoyed, and how it stood out.
Oh God, yeah. And I don't really remember her. And it's one of the things that I was going to, after reading the issue, I was going to go back through it and see if I could see if they did show her origin. But he gave you that little quick sentence about how, her husband, maimed her and, killed her. And that was her birth into this universe. So you can imagine he was, not the nicest of guys to her. So throughout their probably brief marriage, I'm going to guess, he wasn't the most understanding and caring husband. So along the ways, hence the birth of her. So it's interesting that these characters are all going to have these same kind of tragic stories. You're not going to get too many happy origin stories for a Red Lantern. And the fact that you have that, and you have all these characters coming together on that common ground, is, again, it's a neat thing about these lanterns that I was like, man, I'm glad. I don't want to call them palate cleansers, because they're so tied into the universe, and they're so... normally for me, a palate cleanser is something kind of like just, I can kind of change of pace, something different. These are very superhero oriented, but they're such a, villainous side, such a darker story that I'm like, this is kind of neat. It's one of the pluses and enjoyments I always had from titles like Secret Six, where you can explore the darkness. You can explore the evil or the hatred or the rage or the non-pleasant, not the non-dun-da-da moments you have in this book. It's one of the things that make it so great is that we don't have those. And yeah, I loved seeing just her, the face, and then in come the Third Army. And you're just like, oh, this is going to be good. And I actually thought they would have a better effect against them, seeing how the Red Lanterns can affect Green Lanterns so well. But it looks like the Guardians did an upgrade with the Third Army, but there's still weaknesses. And I love the fact that Atrocitus found the weakness.
Well, he found the weakness by listening to his lanterns and what they were noticing. About the eyes? That was something that his lanterns noticed, and that eye thing was, again, got him further. I love that he pays attention. The human rancor was right. Their eyes do not belong to them. These are stolen eyes, trapped inside that foul thing. The rest has been transformed, subsumed, but not the eyes. That's important. It must mean something. Now, what would happen if... A lot of times when Atrocitus, you see him, and you see that intense rage from him, you tend to think he's more brutish. But then when you see him in these moments, it's like, wow, he really has great intelligence. And that, to me, makes a character all the more creepy. Because I still look at Atrocitus as a villain because of who he is, what he's done, and those horrible things. But when, to me, you add a creepy factor to that villain when you make them this smart, this calculating. His experiment is to poke the eyes. I mean, now we're getting really experimental in a very creepy way. And that's something, I'm with you on this book. It's fresh. It's just, it offers a different perspective on the universe, a different take in the Green Lantern world in a way that's not as bright as you would see in the other books. And that's, to me, what's interesting about this. It makes the universe of the Green Lantern worlds feel more complete. I also love the introduction in all of these books in the Green Lantern series of alien races and how they really try to develop a personality to that race and a sense of morality to that race. I think that's something that's really important when you're doing spacefaring books, because as a kid growing up, why did I like Star Trek? Why did I like Star Wars? Why, these shows and things like in Babylon 5, and why was I into that kind of stuff? Well, the reason why I was into that kind of stuff was because of the interesting races. And the more that they developed them and had them have an impact on the main players of the story, the ones you're really supposed to be hanging with, it added some layer of depth to it that wasn't there before. This is a book, the Red Lantern series, I gotta be honest with you, I've enjoyed it since it came out. I've always thought it was good. There were some issues that I thought was great, but I think as the series has gone on, it has consistently been on the rise in terms of quality and what the importance of what is going on in this book to the Green Lantern world, but also to understanding this emotion and what it brings. And I like that. To me, that's more of what I want to see from these titles that fall outside of the Green Lantern world. If they ever did something with the Blue Lanterns or did an anthology or something. An anthology, I think, would be the next step if you're going to do some of the other core so you can showcase and highlight them. This really is something that, I don't know if you're feeling the same way. My feeling is this is a book that has been on the rise, and these issues are exactly why.
Oh, yeah, big time. And something I didn't realize until just now, by the way, the Third Army member that Atrocitus kills, the first one where he figures out, that's Scorch. That's his own lantern that, who's been turned. So it's kind of a... she's the first one that they're able to kill.
Oh, good point.
And it is his own person. So he made sure to, I guess, set her free or do whatever it is or however it is. But she was the one that he kills because you can see the bright red eyes. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, that it is his own person. And in a way, I could, I don't know if he intended on that or if it was just the fact that, that's the closest one to him that he killed. Part of me wonders if it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Well, he also seems logical enough that he would recognize that at this point she's gone. That's it. It's over. It's done with. We're seeing the girl that we've been following this issue too being overtaken. That added a horror to this to me too, because she was hurt. She'd been a narrator for a lot of this, and you see her going through all this. To me, anytime there's something going over your face like that, where it's blocking out your face, your nose, your mouth, stuff like that. That claustrophobic thing. I don't have many phobias. That is one of mine. Not being able to breathe, all that kind of thing. And when they do this, I mean, it's appropriate time of year with Halloween, coming around, that you've got something like this going on in the books, because I like creepy films right about now. This is very creepy film.
Yeah. All big time. And part of me wonders if they're going to be able to save her. And it's weird. I know she's probably gone, but what if they were to gouge out the eyes of the Third Army member before they can finish the deal? If it's only a partial. Could the red ring that was Scorch bring her back? Could something happen? Maybe a connection. This would be their way in and their connection to who the Third Army is, or an understanding of it if it's only a partial transformation. And can you do a partial transformation? These are kind of things I'm wondering what's going to happen with the next issue.
I agree. And see, that to me is when you're doing a crossover like this or an event like this, you've got to keep people interested in seeing more. Like, there's a big mystery here. I love a mystery. I like that we know certain things that the people on screen don't know. And I like that there's things that are happening that we clearly don't know that other people are going to know. I want to see how that happens. I'm with you. Can anybody come back from this? I don't know. And that's been one of the cool things about how they've developed this. It's the characters that have been enveloped in it are ones you could say to yourself, well, would they bring them back? You know, is there a need for them to bring them back? What happens when they do this to somebody that's really going to make us go, whoa? That's what I'm really interested in seeing. Because that's got to happen, right, at some point?
Oh, yeah. And there's going to be, like, a main character. There's going to be somebody big that this happens to, or that's killed because of this. There's going to be that linchpin. There's going to be that moment. And I wonder, part of me wonders if it's one of the green that we know. There's maybe a red that goes down. There's a blue. I'm hoping we don't lose Saint Walker because I love that character. There's so many different characters that are out there that could become the sacrifice, and you need to have that in a war. This is a war against the Third Army, so we're gonna get that, and we're gonna get those moments. And it's part of the anticipation and the excitement, but part of me the dread, because I hope it's not one of my favorite characters that goes away.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I say we sacrifice the red beach ball.
Jim, I'm looking at the cover of Green Lantern number 13. That's Sade on the cover right there, right? Right behind the word Green Lantern. So I'm looking, and the reason why I'm noting that is, we haven't seen Sade's reaction to all this yet. But you got to think that there's going to be a part of Sade that philosophically agrees with the rest of the Guardians because of what Sade's gone through with being part of the Orange Lantern Corps, being trapped in that. We've seen that she's behind the scenes kind of setting herself up in that situation. I don't think Sade's going to have to... I guess part of me's wondering, is Sade going to have to be lobotomized to go along with all this? I don't know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And to be honest, I haven't did much thought about her and how she's going to go with this and how she's going to roll with it. But you think about, she was one of the co-founders of the Blue Lanterns.
Sure.
She sacrificed herself, for the Orange Lanterns, but she's not his puppet. And she's made it very clear she's not his puppet. And at any given time, she's going to turn on him. So there's a definite character and a personality within her. I was always expecting thinking she would be the one to help bring back Ganthet, to bring back the Ganthet that we know. But they could do a flip-flop on me, and she could go full-on with the rest of her Guardians. There could definitely be a moment of, what are you doing? I thought you were one of the good ones.
Well, see, I'm wondering that now, too. I was with you. I was very much in the camp that she was going to be one of the ones that might be an ally to the Corps, especially when it comes to when she discovers what happens to Ganthet. I don't know now, with what she's been through, with, and the whole Agent Orange thing and being a part of all that, I don't know that she wouldn't turn, that she wouldn't become one of them, too, that she wouldn't see what they're doing and agree with it. Because there comes a point where you've been through something so traumatic like she's been, that you would see what the pain of the emotional spectrum is. Would she agree philosophically that we need to get rid of avarice and greed and those other emotions because of the path that it led? I don't know. I'm very curious because I do think there's multiple possibilities with her, but I'm not as convinced now that she is going to be one of the good guys when all this is said and done.
Yeah, there may be, again, I didn't even think of that. That's kind of cool. That, and this goes into just what this universe has to pull from, what the Green Lantern, what they have, to play around with. And who knows? In the end, she may not be a major role in this. She may not be a part of, as significant as we're thinking, but you never know until it actually plays out. And I think that's part of the excitement, part of the anticipation, and part of just the different, what about this? What about this? What about that? And you need that when you're getting into a giant story like this, when you're getting into these big crossover events. It's, we're seeing those kind of, what about this? What if this, with the whole death of the family, with the Joker being back. It's the anticipation of the event is part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, I agree. And the anticipation is built by interesting events, interesting facts. I saw her on the cover, and that, like, it's only the place you see her. You see her on the cover, and just seeing the look on her face, I'm like, what if? And it really made me question how solid I am in thinking that she's going to be a good guy in this. I don't know that I am anymore. I think events have unfolded in such a way where I could see her agreeing now in a way where she didn't before. I don't know. I liked this analysis in issue 13 of Green Lantern. You would imagine when, like, a Hal Jordan, who was in the Justice League and is prominently in the spotlight, and you see now that he's left the team. He's taking, the fall for the team. There's multiple Green Lanterns on Earth, and you see a president and Amanda Waller who are kind of looking at this whole situation and trying to figure out the best way to react with this whole thing. They're analyzing each individual one, and the one who seems to be the most trustworthy in their eyes is John Stewart because of his military record. Like, we know how this guy will react for our country and under orders and that type of thing. That's, we can look back and see that history. But, like, Guy Gardner, if you look at his history on paper, or Kyle Rayner's, these are people who they don't have a solid background for them, and Hal Jordan obviously has his own little reputation. I really liked this as being an opener of this issue because you've got the lineup of the people that we normally know, and then talk about another curveball, Baz, who doesn't fall into any of those categories.
Well, for most of them, they consider him a potential terrorist. So you've got this whole complete. They're going through, and I love the fact that they broke down that they knew who Hal Jordan was. When Amanda's sitting there talking about Hal Jordan, I'm like, wait a minute, his identity isn't public. I like the fact that the government is able to figure that out, that she was able to figure it out, and she's giving a briefing to the president saying, okay, this is what we know, and she would include that kind of stuff, and she wouldn't say, okay, an unknown entity as for this Green Lantern. No, they know who it is, and they didn't know who Kyle was yet, but they were working on it, and they're trying to figure out, okay, from his constructs, he's an artist, and they could tell starting to lay the pieces of his background. And I love the fact that this is a complete, detailed, investigation in who the Green Lantern Corps is. Look at their constructs. Look at how they present themselves. Look at how they do and what they do. And it was a really cool just moment of, I like this. Again, a very realistic, real-world feel to it. And especially the fact that the president goes, hey, call the Justice League. Get them in on this. This is their level. This is their area of expertise. This is their dealings with this. We need them to deal with this power. I don't know who this guy is, but I know what a Green Lantern ring can do. We need the Justice League. I was really pumped to see that type of level of trust and just that belief in the Justice League that the president would have.
Well, here's the thing, though. Is it total trust? Or is it a realization that this is out of our realm and we need to get people involved in this and actively seeking this out where it isn't out of their realm? I think countries all around the world would be reacting to what's going on with these Green Lanterns and analyzing them like this. And I love the amount of depth they showed the analysis because you better believe they would have top scientists on it because what happens if any one of these turn? It's how is our government going to deal with those people? If they go all General Zod, kneel before Hal. It's one of those things where this makes sense. You need to take them as the genuine threat that they are, especially when the commentary comes around for Guy and Kyle. Unknown quantities. Now Baz is being given a ring, and where the government's going to be questioning, okay, they said they were a police force, and that was something that I really enjoyed about this as well, that it just kind of made sense to me.
Yeah, it's funny because this is the second issue of Baz. And again, we're getting more depth into who he is, getting more behind the character. And I'm really starting to like this guy. And it's when we first talked about him, I was saying, he's a crook. He isn't, he's not one of the good guys. I don't know if I would hang out with him. If I would, be buddy pals with him like I would be with John Stewart or Kyle or even Guy and Hal. But the more I get to see the guy, the more I get to understand him, and I, kind of see his personality. I could see if he and I were both in the factory together. He and I were both just hanging out on a line, putting cars together or doing whatever it was that he did, because he wasn't actually on the line. He was an engineer, so he was the design guys and one of the more the intelligent type people. So I could actually see myself hanging out with this guy. He seems like he's straightforward enough with you. There's a little bit of a standoffishness, but part of that is because of as a kid he and his sister were tormented because they were Muslim, because of everything that happened, because of the history and just this country with some of our dealings with people. So but if you can get beyond that, I can see that guy being the person who would be that loyal friend, who would be that guy. Okay, I know he's got my back because I have his.
I loved what happened with the sister. Not that I loved what happened to her, but I loved it because it felt very real. Because she's the sister of this guy. And it shows really how, as a society, we can be unfair. And I think stories like this really matter to me because this is where, in my eyes, growing up, I always felt like comics were pushing me to be a better person. When you take a look at situations like this, see what the sister goes through and how she was wrong, because she didn't do anything wrong. Now, Baz, he's a carjacker, at the very least. Did he want to blow things up? Was he a terrorist on that level? No, he was a crook. And I'm not poo-pooing that. I'm not downplaying that. That's a very bad thing. I'm not saying that it isn't otherwise. But to me, there's a far cry from that and being a terrorist, which tells you how bad I think being a terrorist is. Because I'm clearly not poo-pooing that. So when you see this reaction to his sister and how this has affected her life, and her life's been turned upside down and swallowed, that was something that I really felt was powerful in its presentation.
Oh, God. Oh, God, yeah. And very realistic again. You think about family members of convicted serial killers, family members of criminals. They'll have problems in society. There have been a lot of times where they'll change their last names. They'll move from cities. They've got to do something to relocate. Even though they had nothing to do with whatever this person did, there's still that connection to them. And again, with her, it's still that... they're going to be that uncomfortableness. They're going to be like, hey, if he is a terrorist, what's about her? Is she going to blow up this place? Is she going to do this? And people are immediately going to start thinking that kind of stuff. And the fact that, they recognize it and they said, hey, we have to, you can't be here. We don't want you to leave. We don't think you're doing anything wrong, but... there's limitations. We have to take this step. And, you feel bad for her. You feel bad for her employer. You feel bad for just generally society that they would do this. But I understand the feelings. Now, I'd like to think that I'm personally, able to look beyond that and able to see her, that she's not her brother, or even, maybe even give him the benefit of the doubt if I knew the guy. But I can understand other people's feelings. I can understand the fear because it's, nobody wants to be that person who says, oh, I'm sure it's fine, and then turns around. You get, it turns out it wasn't fine. You don't want to be the one who says, it's okay, and then find out you're wrong, and other innocent people get killed. And it's part of that fear of not just only my death, but I caused the death of all these other people by not acting.
Jim, what do you think of Baz's costume? Because to me, that's the design of it. We see. I like how it's gradually evolving for him. Like, we didn't see him on the costume that's on the cover with the mask and everything. That's something that's situational. And we know, the Green Lantern mask, from what we've seen in how the other Lanterns have developed it, it pops on when they need to have their identity covered and stuff like that. But with Baz's, we've seen it, kind of organically grow over time as situations needed it. I've liked the way this has been introduced. Yes, it's things that we've seen before, but for some reason, just the presentation of this, and I think because it's based on the style and the, imagination of this character versus the other Green Lanterns that we've seen previously, it just feels fresh, while at the same time treading that territory that we know that's familiar to the Green Lantern world. It's not contradicting that with what they do with Baz. But what do you think of his costume?
Oh, I like it. Again, I'm echoing, I'm nodding my head up and down with you, as you're talking. And I really do like the fact that his tattoo is kind of a trigger, actually, it's now part of the costume, because that was such personalization for him, for his belief, for his faith, for his personal inner strength, his own inner will. And I could imagine when he's pushed to the point, he would look down at that, and he would focus on that, to kind of get him through whatever adversity he was facing. So for it to be part of the trigger, part of the costume, accentuated when Will is being kicked in, when he's using the ring, I like that little touch to it.
Now, we got a character in Baz who previously, one of Baz's biggest problems is irresponsibility. It's just, now, I agree with everything when we looked at the first, appearance of Baz, where you see this character who obviously life has thrown him into turmoil. Some of this is outside stimulus that's put him in this place, and I agree with that. But, with what happened with Nazir and stuff like that, this is a guy who's clearly got demons of things that he's done wrong. No matter what society has done, he still has made some choices of his own that have put him in a position. It's interesting to see that with this character, because I feel like I do like Baz, and I want to see Baz evolve and step it up and become that guy who is more responsible, that guy who can, in some level inspire his sister. And because I really feel like her sister's suffered a major injustice. His sister, I should say, has suffered a major injustice. I really like his sister in this. She was a very sympathetic character for me. It was funny when we saw the introduction of Baz and saw him on covers and saw him in pictures. I wasn't thinking about his family as a supporting cast. This was really a good time to put the sister in for me, because if you want to attach me onto a character like Baz, you've got to give me some people close to him that are supporting cast, that he respects, and that see a certain side of him, even though his sister's losing a little bit of faith in that we haven't seen before. I really loved this dynamic in this, and she's a character who I want to see more of her interaction with Baz, see how she deals with what Baz has become, and that's something that just really stood out for me.
It's funny because when you say irresponsibility, part of me, though, sees him completely different. And I understand why you're saying irresponsibility, but he's made poor choices. He's made the wrong choice, but there's always been that responsible nature behind it. He got his brother-in-law, mental state of, crippled, paralyzed, or vegetated state. I don't know exactly how bad off the guy is, but, that was a bit of irresponsibility. But then everything beyond that has always been about his sister, has been about their family, has been about trying to make right. And, he makes the wrong choices and he steals a car, but the intention behind the stealing the car are noble purposes.
We're seeing it.
Irresponsibility is his issue. I think it's just judgment.
Well, but I think those are irresponsible choices to solve the problem. I think, if you're trying to better, because his choices, because they were irresponsible, has put his sister in this position. That's why he's being viewed as a terrorist. I think we're seeing it in the same way, because the way you're explaining it, I've got no contradiction to anything you're saying. My word choice was, though, because he made the poor decisions, like you're saying that he did, that irresponsibility of thinking about, if I do this, if I react this way, what is the potential harm to my family because of it? Not thinking of others when you do actions, when you make bad choices, is irresponsible. Because what ends up... And, we've all been there. Not on this level, but you make choices and they have consequences on others. There's an irresponsibility there because you're not being responsible to those other people that are around you. So I guess where I'm seeing the irresponsibility is, look at what's happened to his sister because of the bad choices he's made that you mentioned. So I agree, amen to everything you just said, but that's where I'm seeing the irresponsibility, because before making those choices, he didn't look at the potential consequences to others. His choices don't just affect him. They affect his family. They affect the viewpoint of people like him in his community who are already being labeled because he makes that choice, he's increasing the hardship on those people who are trying so hard to show that, no, we are people just like everybody else. We want to live our day-to-day life. You know, we want to be respected. We want to go down the street, want to go to restaurants. We want to do all the things that you do. And we want to be not looked at because of our culture. We want to be looked at as people, just like everyone else, you know, in this country that's supposed to be the melting pot. And that's where I see the irresponsibility with him. When you're in a community like that, that clearly has been a focal point, you've got to take a look at your actions and say, not only how is it affecting me, but what will that do with the outside worldview of my people? You know, clearly when there's so many people that are trying so hard to step away from the stereotypes that have been put on that community. I really like how deep this gets with this character because of that. Because I think there's things that are stand out, and that's where I see him as irresponsible. I agree with what you're saying as far as he does look out for his family. That's one of the things where I find him endearing. His reasons for doing these things that he's doing, I think, are driven by something that's noble. You know, I think that if you don't have that, you've got a guy who's unlikable. Baz is not unlikable. I really like Baz. I want to smack Baz upside the head and say, dude, take a look at what your sister's trying to do with her life. Because of your choice now, you are taking that away from her. And that's where I see the irresponsibility. So I don't know if that makes any more sense. And it doesn't have to change your opinion of it. It's more of, I do want to clarify, I don't disagree with anything you said, but that's where I'm seeing him as being somebody who's irresponsible, and that's kind of where that stands out for me. And maybe word choice wise, you see it differently in how you're perceiving it, but I don't know that we see this guy all that differently.
No, I think it's just our phraseology and what we're saying and how we're saying it. So I think we both see him in the same kind of very similar light in what he's doing and how he's doing it. Just, I think, you know, it's one of the things that kind of amazes me is we are so focused on his person, on him, you know, and his family and his relationship that as we're talking about this, we completely glossed over and didn't even mention the message from Hal and Sinestro. We're so focused on who Baz is that when we didn't even talk about that. And I think that, again, shows the strength of the character of who he is and where he comes from and just our fascination with this guy and what's being laid out, that we would skip over, you know, something so, you know, monumental and so huge that we would keep going with this, and we didn't even break stride or even think twice about, you know, about that.
Well, I think when you introduce a new character, you've really got to develop him with the intention that he's interesting and he's worth following. I find him incredibly fascinating and interesting, which I didn't know how I'd feel about a new Green Lantern. This is how you introduce a new character into a universe, whether it's in Green Lantern or whatever. You've got to make a guy that he isn't just thrown in there for the purpose of making a new character. You develop him from the ground up to be somebody that has a unique voice in the universe. Baz has a unique voice. This is a character who has legs because I want to follow where he goes. I like him. In spite of everything I said about irresponsible choices, bad choices, whatever you want to say, I like him. I do think at his core there's a good guy in there. And that's something that's really important because if you're going to follow him, you've got to care. He's got to be interesting. And this character is clearly that. Before I was thinking, well, he'd be a great temporary character until, like, you know, Hal and the crew come back. This is a character I can already say a couple issues in, I don't know that I want to see this guy go anywhere when all this is done because I'm very into him. It's not that I don't want Hal to come back, and I do. But I think now we're seeing a clear line where there's room for Baz.
Yeah. And he's a great character and a great style and just a different look into the Green Lantern universe, a different look into the hero universe. I want to see this guy a year from now, 2 years from now, where he's gotten more comfortable with the universe, where he's got more comfortable with being a hero. Will he always have the mask? Will he drop the mask? Will he say, hey, this is who I am, guys. I'm actually one of the good guys. You know, and yes, I am a Muslim. Yes, I am this. You guys accuse me of being a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist. I'm really one of the good guys here. Let's step up. Let's show the world who we are, what we're about, and just kind of be that representation, be that, that character, reference for, for his community. And I want to see that type of stuff. That's one of the things I like about Jon Stewart, in that he doesn't wear the mask. He doesn't have the secret identity. This is who he is. He's not hiding. Same thing with Guy. They're not hiding. They're not keeping a secret. This is them. And it causes them problems and grief later on, but there is always that part of it. And I wonder if he's going to go that route, if he's going to, or if he's always going to keep the mask and only certain people will know his secret identity. But it's, kind of pretty much out there.
Can the error in the ring be coming from the conflict from Hal and Sinestro in the message?
Oh, definitely.
Because, the two of them are clearly fighting there. They've got the same idea. Stay away from the Guardians, stay away from Oa. Do not go to the training there. They will destroy you. You've got to find a way to stop the Guardians. You're counting everything on, let's get a new lantern going, with the purpose of gather an army, get people together, do whatever you got to do to put a stop to what's going on Oa. This is a guy who doesn't know what Oa is.
Right.
That's really interesting because they're giving him advice on who to go see. Hal's saying, go see Carol Ferris. You can completely trust her. But Sinestro's coming back with, Arkillo is still loyal to me. And I loved that conflict between the two of them and how that was being presented, because these are two very strong-willed people that believe in certain people that they've surrounded themselves with and believe that they know, they're confident enough that they know what is the right course of action. That is exactly what's cool about the development we've seen with Hal and Sinestro over the last year leading up to this. It means more when you see them having a conflict now like this. You're like, okay, I get this. And I get how that could be such a powerful thing, but it's also then a very confusing message for a Baz, because how do you interpret that?
Yeah, and who is who, and who is, now they said Carol Ferris, so he could Google that name and he could find her that way. But Arkillo, he's not going to know who it is.
Well, if you frequent the Vegas nightclub scene, you would see Arkillo there. He does a one-man show. And, so you would kind of see him in the... No, you're right. There'll be, which is interesting. That's kind of the fatal flaw. Well, actually, he's got a Google on his hand.
Yeah, true.
He could find Arkillo... Actually, I take it back. All the joking aside, he could actually find Arkillo through his ring, if he's at the point where he can discover that.
Yeah, if he knows what to do. Now, part of me thinks they should have thrown out Kyle Rayner's name, because Kyle is somebody that both Hal and Sinestro...
They don't know what's happened to the other members of the Corps. If you notice, the people that they recommended in both cases, they recommended people who were not part of the Green Lantern Corps. Arkillo's a Yellow Lantern. And
good call.
Yeah, which I really thought was an interesting little touch. They deliberately recommended people who were not a part of the Corps.
Hey, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If, say, now I'm assuming the Ring chose Baz, they couldn't direct it. It was one of those automatic tracking devices. But if you were Hal and or Sinestro, is there somebody you would specifically direct that ring to?
You mean like in real life?
Well, in this universe, in this comic book universe, if you had the ability to control who that ring goes to, who would you control it to go to?
Wow, there's always like the hero end where you could say you would go to those people. Somebody who could overcome.
Because I think I know.
Who's a character who I honestly think the ring could go to? Lois Lane.
Say again.
Lois Lane.
Oh, yeah. She'd be a good one.
I mean, think about her MO as a Daily Planet reporter and the things that she's gone up against and overcome fear to be involved in to get the story. Yeah, so true. She is somebody who I think has that ability to overcome great fear that would trigger the ring.
You know who I'd send it to?
Who?
Alfred.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely can overcome fear. 2, he's the personal confidant of the greatest detective.
Yeah.
And 3, he's got a character such that he would give up the ring if he needs to. When everything is said and done, if there's only one ring and Hal can't get a ring back, Alfred would hand over the ring to him, say, hey, I'm Alfred. I'm not a Green Lantern. Here you go. You can have it. That's the other thing I wonder what's going to happen when this story plays out. What happens to the ring? What happens to Hal? Sinestro probably will go back to his core, but if there's only one green ring, who's going to get it, and how's it going to play out?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with Alfred, too. He could really use the ring right now.
Oh, God, yeah. Big time.
Yeah. We really should talk about the Third Army appearance in this one and how they showed up on the scene. Because, you've got somebody right now in Baz who isn't really in a position to handle the Third Army that's coming to Earth. We clearly saw in the end of the issue of 13 of Red Lanterns that Earth is their destination. So Earth's going to become a battleground. And is that going to bring the Justice League, because they're already with Baz, into this conflict on the side of Baz? How is this all going to play out? The Justice League coming on the scene, though, was something that was really cool, because this is their friend Hal is gone. You've got this guy Baz right now, and they don't know his whole MO. Can we trust him? Can we not? Just because somebody has a Green Lantern ring does not mean they should be instantly trusted. And I like how these guys are saying, hey, you're in a lot of trouble, Mr. Baz. Justice League trouble. And this is somebody who they're assuming is a terrorist. What is he doing with a Green Lantern ring? But they know Hal well enough and what it means to be a Green Lantern Corps member. Is there going to be that bit of skepticism that he's as bad as everything's saying he is if he was considered to be worthy to have the ring? Or is that part of them is going to question, Hal's vanished and gone? Did you do something to him? Like, what is going to be their take on all of this? There's a lot of different directions you could go. Even the ones that I listed aren't the limits of the directions of what could possibly happen out of this and what could lead to a conflict between these guys. But I really loved that cliffhanger ending because it made me think, like, what are they going to do?
And talk about just a holy crud moment for this guy.
Oh, yeah.
You've just had the ring for less than 24 hours, and now you're going up against the Justice League, and he's got the full league right there. This isn't just one or two of them. He's got them all, and they're all in the, okay, it's time to kick some butt mode. Especially you got Cyborg there, crossed arms, just giving him that stare, like, okay, it's on now. And you got Aquaman with with his trident just ready to roll, and Wonder Woman, as always, just looks cool. I was just like, this is a neat, just bam kind of, butt kicking pose, ready to throw down what's going to happen next. A great, great ending to a really pumped up issue. And this is, again, the Green Universe. We're talking last issue about the Bat Universe and how the Bat family is really, well, the Green Universe is saying, hey, we're still here. We're still throwing down some really cool stuff. And I'm like, yay for me. This is why I love being a comic fan.
Yeah.
You get these moments. And I was like, yeah.
The Green Universe never stopped.
No.
It's really been very consistent in continuing to develop just quality storytelling and consistent builds. I think that the gradual build that goes on while they have other story arcs going on in their books, I think is something that's really just tight on the writer level. I don't know if it's tight on the editorial level. I won't pretend that I understand how that all comes together. There's a number of people involved in, I'm sure, making this all work out the way that it does. And it's really been something that has, since Rebirth, has not let up at all. If you have never read or have not been a Green Lantern reader, any of these story arcs is a good time to jump on, I think, and just see if this world's for you. You got to give yourself a good couple months to read it, though, and really kind of immerse yourself into the world to see if it's right for you, because I do think one issue isn't enough. I think to really understand how these books are working and what's making them unique and interesting, you've got to give it a couple months to really see the seeds being laid out and grow and fester into something special. And that's a strength of long-form storytelling. When you do that, the payoff's a little bigger. The payoff means a little more. The payoff has moments where because you understand the characters so well due to the long-form storytelling, there's a deep emotional resonance to that payoff that really is fantastic and satisfying. And this is comics at its best when you have this kind of thing. I mean, this is, like you said, this is why we read these books and keep coming back for more, because it's like, they're doing what now? It's where you can take a Baz and put him in the book, and you're like, I want to know more. I want to see more. This guy's cool. He's interesting. Doesn't make me want any of my other characters gone. It's introducing some new twist into the mythos, some new lore into the mythos that is interesting and fun. These new characters are always, I think, a way to keep the line fresh, and they always have been. And they build loyalty. There's fans right now that are going to become deep, and I'm probably one of them from my enjoyment of him right now, that are going to become deep fans of Baz as this guy. This might be their lantern, their jump-on lantern, where maybe they're reading him for the first time, or this is their first time seeing a Lantern from birth on. Why did Tim Drake get so many fans as Robin? Because there's people who've read him since the beginning, straight on through present day. The same thing with Damian. I think Damian's going to develop a fan following, and has already developed a fan following of fans who. That's the first time seeing the genesis of a Robin. And this is something with Baz that I think is also going to have that kind of feature, because he's a good character. I mean, you've got to really have a good, powerful, not flat character. He's very three-dimensional and very unique. Good stuff.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
How you doing, guys? This is Brandon calling out of New Orleans again. I was just calling to chat a little bit about 0 month continuity with Batman, Robin, and the fuss about the issues of how there were so many Robins and the timeline, and DC has put the wrap of 5 years. And I mean, that's kind of impossible when it comes to talking about Batman in general. I mean, because he clearly would have had to have been working behind the scenes for at least 7 years before the 5-year cap. I mean, just to have conceived Damian. Damian is a 10-year-old boy, so I would imagine that he would have been fully around and operational for at least a year or two before getting intertwined with, Roz, Race, however you'd like to pronounce it, whoever you're talking to, and Talia, and that whole gag, that whole deal. So, I mean, of course, there has to be some concessions, especially when you're talking about Batman, because you'd imagine, like I said, 2 or 3 years operating, and then that happening. You'd imagine Dick would probably be there about that time. Say he got with him when he was about 12, it looks like in the books, 12, 13 years old in the Zero issue if you read Nightwing, and probably operated with him until he was around 14, 15, and then that was when Jason popped around, and I'm guessing that's when maybe you would say Batman started to, come into the spotlight with Death in the Family and the death of Jason Todd and him coming back. Of course, I read the Red Hood issue and all of that. So, I mean, obviously, when Jason came around, Dick was already gone and doing his whole thing as his Nightwing, and it clearly looks like he's over 20 years old now, so he would have had to have been 17 when he left Batman and gone on for a little while. Probably Jason stuck with him for about 2 years and went off and did his thing. And Tim, I bought Teen Titans, read that one, and of course Tim came in and did his thing for a year or two before. We don't know exactly what happened with Tim and Damian and the New 52 continuity, but if anybody remembers the old continuity, Damian kind of came in there, whooped up on Tim a little bit, and kind of claimed the mantle of Robin, said it was his, and that's the way it was going to be, and it went on from there. But I definitely say that the fuss with Batman and the continuity, it's impossible to put a 5-year stamp on Batman and say that's it, that's what it is, period, 5 years, because it clearly it had to have taken longer than that. That's my thoughts. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about it. If you know any more that I know, any insight, I'd love to hear it. Love the show again, guys. Keep up with the good work.
When Batman meets Green Lantern in the Justice League, the first thing out of Green Lantern's mouth is, I thought you were an urban legend, or something like that. It's that implication. And everything I've read from DC as far as trying to put some kind of timeline on Batman was that he was operating before as an urban legend. So a lot of what he's saying about how he's kind of playing out the timeline in his head makes sense. I mean, and that fits the whole urban legend thing. I think where the 5-year comes into it, it's less about trying to fit all of Batman's timeline into that 5 years and recognizing that the rest of the universe falls into that 5-year timeline. I don't know that necessarily fits entirely the Green Lantern books either, because you would imagine a lot of events happened, we know, obviously from what we were just talking about, that there's a lot of stuff that went on for many, 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 millennia with Green Lantern. So the 5-year timeline, and when it comes to the Batman books, I think it's more based on the Robins that they fall somewhere in that 5-year timeline. I agree with him that Dick Grayson, I'm not seeing anything that indicates that Dick Grayson has to have occurred in that 5-year time frame. The Robin timeline could be stretched out longer than that, and I don't see any reason why that has to be pinned down. If you're saying Batman was an urban legend, why do we have to pin down how long he's been operating? I think it's better served if we don't. I don't know that I've read anywhere, and maybe you have, Jim, or heard at panels. I've never considered the Batman timeline to completely fit in the 5 years, especially with Green Lantern's reaction to him when he first meets. The implication is that Batman's been operating for quite a bit longer, because you don't become an urban legend overnight. That has to go on for many, many years. A few years at least, enough so that the word would be around about you. People would talk, and it would spread like a game of telephone. Maybe be on the news, it'd be honestly stuff that would appear in like your Inquirers and things like that in the Star, on grocery shelves, really, and on the internet, Batman, is he a myth? Is he a hoax? That kind of thing. In Gotham City, here's what's happening. So urban legend, that to me is that. Are you seeing him the way I am, or you think I'm off base on this, or?
Well, first off, you can become an urban legend overnight. I know I did, so I was able to pull it off. But I am the sensei of whatnot, so there is a different level between me and Batman. But along with the urban legend, we're kind of in agreement on this. When you think about with the Batgirl issue, when Barbara is in the police station, Batman's been around for a while, and that was really before he was public.
Yeah.
There was this quote unquote secret task force basically dealing with the Batman, and like, oh, he is real. Oh, okay. So there is still that little bit of mystic level that may have been right as he was, a public confirmation, but I definitely took it that there was more of a private, it wasn't public knowledge, it wasn't common knowledge, he wasn't as out there. He was more of the legend. He was more of the urban, the myth, the mystery. What is this? Is it just people seeing things, or is this actually a guy in a bat costume? And what kind of bat costume is it? What's he look like? So I definitely think there is a little bit of a fudge work going on with the timeline.
Well, I take it as the timeline is Justice League #1 is Batman's coming out party to the world.
Could be.
In the sense that he was an urban legend up until then, and when the Justice League became a public entity, it's kind of like, wow, there really is a Batman.
Oh, definitely. And you see in those that first issue, that he does have a level of comfort, and there is a level of maturity that the others don't have, that he's dealt with crazy stuff. He's been operational for years. He's been operational for some time. That isn't one of his first opening, salvos into the crazy world.
Yeah. So I'm with him. It doesn't work in 5 years, and I don't want to pin down. I think that is something that doesn't need to be pinned down. When you say urban legend, I think you're better off leaving some elastic to that because of what he's saying with Damian and things. I don't remember seeing it published that Batman happened in 5 years. I think the current DC timeline from Action Comics #1 through to where we're at now has taken place in a 5-year time frame. But that doesn't mean all of Batman has if he was already established in Justice League #1 as being around for quite a bit longer. I don't see anything that indicates that Batman had to have happened, and Batman had to have been on the scene when Superman, first got. Batman could have been on the scene before Superman first got started there. But Superman was the first public superhero.
Yeah, he was the first, look, he can fly, or look, he can leap tall buildings in a single bound. So he was just that out there. He was that in the newspaper. His picture was getting put out there. His shirt was being worn by people. There was, Superman. It's Superman, so they were more public about it, more open, more, it's the nature of the two characters.
Superhero versus a vigilante.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's kind of the way I take it. I don't know, it's interesting. I like seeing where this history is and where it's coming from. I like the Robin chronology that's being developed because I'm with him. I think from those Zero issues, you can clearly see you were even addressing this. You're in your mind, that how these characters had a certain amount of time being Robin, and even the way you were explaining it could kind of fit into the 5-year timeline. But with your explanation, it would fit a little better if it was even a little bit more than 5 years. And I really liked your explanation of it when you and I talked about it last. So I'm in total agreement with him. It doesn't work. And I don't feel, though, that it is in that timeline. I don't. I really feel the urban legend thing says a lot.
Hi, Sean and Jim. I want to say good morning and thank you for this awesome show that you guys do every week. I've been listening to it for probably a year or so now since the New 52 launched, and it's been a blessing each and every time I turn it on, and so I always enjoy listening to it. Sean, I heard your comments about Teen Titans Zero this last week, and wanted to just say that for the most part, I think most of what DC has done in the number Zeros and the entire New 52 has been really good. But Teen Titans number Zero bothered me just a little bit, primarily because I'm a Tim Drake fan from way back in 1989 when he made his first appearance, and I just felt like that Teen Titans Zero undid a lot of the things that made Tim Drake special and unique. And so, for example, I know a lot of fans have said that, one of the things that made Tim Drake unique was that he is the only Robin who went out looking for the job. He wanted the job of Robin. But originally that wasn't true. He discovered Batman's identity and then went to try to recruit Dick Grayson back for the job because he knew that Batman needed a Robin, but he never really wanted that for himself. He stepped into the role when Dick Grayson refused to do it and was more than willing to serve. But that sort of humility that defines Tim's character, I think, is just not present in Teen Titans number Zero. There, he's the best at everything, and he seems to know it. He's not arrogant, maybe, but he's also not as humble, I think, as he was in his original iteration, all the way back in the original DCU in 1989 when he made his first appearance. And I think that's one of the things that made Tim Drake so endearing for me. He's a favorite of mine, as I said, all the way back in the late 80s, and was an endearing character to me primarily because he didn't really want that kind of job and that kind of responsibility, but was willing to do it when the person that he thought would be best for it, Dick Grayson, decided that he had moved on. I just didn't see that in his character in Teen Titans Zero, and I haven't really seen that as much in his character all the way through the new run on the Teen Titans. But another thing, and I've already made mention of this, but another thing that I thought Teen Titans number Zero undid was in the original Tim Drake discovered Batman's secret identity. It's one of the things that made him distinctive from all of the other Robins. He was the only one that discovered who Batman was on his own. And in the New 52, that honor goes to Dick Grayson. And Tim Drake, who was originally was the best detective of all of the people who had served as Batman's sidekick or as Batman's partner, now is just kind of second rate to Dick Grayson. I know in the issue that it is said that he is a great detective, but we're told that he's a great detective, and we're not shown it in Teen Titans Zero, and I just felt like that was a step backward for Tim's character, that he wasn't even that aspect of his character was not preserved, that he was the Robin or the person who eventually served as Robin, but who discovered Batman's secret identity. And then finally, in the original DC universe, Tim Drake was a genius-level computer whiz, probably second only to Barbara Gordon as Oracle, maybe even surpassing her, which I think is debatable. But in the DC2, he's kind of a second-rate hacker who isn't proficient enough to hack into accounts and steal money without being caught. And I don't know. I just, as I read that, I thought, man, this is not the Tim Drake that I know. The Tim Drake that I know, probably would never have stolen money to begin with from anybody, even the Penguin. But also, even if he had done something like that, he wouldn't have gotten caught. He would have been skilled enough, good enough to avoid that. So, it also, I think, one more thing, and I'll stop talking about this, but Tim Drake in the original DC universe was a planner. He had the ability to foresee all possible outcomes and develop contingencies for all of those possible outcomes. And here he just seemed like he was flying by the seat of his pants, which again, it's just not. That's more like a Jason Todd characteristic. It's not Tim Drake. And I guess when I was reading Teen Titans Zero, I finished it the first time, and as an old school Tim Drake fan, I just felt sick to my stomach because I just didn't recognize his character. And I know I don't want to run anybody down. I know that new universes, new continuity means changes, even to some fan favorites, and that's true. But for me, it just didn't make sense to change all of those things about Tim's character when they were the things that made him most distinctive from the other people who had served as Batman's sidekick or as Batman's partner. So anyway, that's just a few thoughts. I just wanted to say again, thank you guys for what you do. I love hearing the banter and the back and forth between you, the opposing viewpoints, and it really brightens my day when I see that a new Raging Bullets has been posted. So you guys take care, and I'll look forward to hearing the next episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
First of all, thank you for the call, because it's a very in-depth call. You're seeing things very differently than I am, and there's actually some things in the issue that I think you're discounting. He wanted to be discovered by the Penguin. It wasn't because he was a second-rate hacker. He wanted to reread the issue. He wanted to be discovered by the Penguin to draw out Batman. He engineered that. So it wasn't that Tim was brilliant with that. He pulled Batman out from that, and Batman even called him on that, saying, you did this on purpose to pull me out there, which is why Batman respects him so much. So it's totally not that. You mentioned that Dick Grayson discovering who Bruce was something that diminishes Tim. Dick Grayson discovered who Bruce was when Dick Grayson was already living with Bruce. There's a huge distinction between living in somebody's home and seeing clues and doing what Tim did from the outside in. I feel that really if you reread those Zero issues and take a look at the distinction between Tim and Jason and Dick and Damian, and oh my gosh, is this kid special. The humble end of it, I agree with you that the humble end of it's a little bit different on this one. But where I caught the humble end of it is because his parents had to go into witness protection. This kid now has to take on this responsibility of being Robin and really step his game up because of the fact that his parents gave up their life to give him this opportunity to do something more with his. So his humble nature comes from the sacrifice that his parents made, and that's made him into this guy. He is using the computer as far as not being a whiz with the computer. That's been established since issue 1 of the Teen Titans series, where he was tracking down all those being hunted using his skills. That was really the basis of how this Teen Titans series has been going. I'm not saying you have to like the direction of the series or anything like that, but these things are clearly laid out in the series, and I don't feel the guy's been diminished at all. I do feel, yes, is the origin because of the time frame being more compressed? Has the origin changed? Absolutely, but the core elements of Tim are there. You know, he still was the guy that was seeking out Batman. Now, did he discover who Batman was? It didn't quite work out that way, in the sense that Batman discovered he was looking for him. So you've got two great detectives trying to seek each other out in a digital world. And you got to remember, this is a digital world where Batman's digital world is a lot more in tune with social media and hackers hacking into his computers and stuff like that. For Tim to try and make it past that with Batman being so tech savvy in this world where Batman would need to be tech savvy, the timeline's starting at a different point in time where Batman would need to be that guy as well. I love, though, that it really was a tete-a-tete between the two of them versus, where Batman's like, I underestimated him. He's still coming. With the whole Penguin thing, that was something that Batman noted. This kid kept on going. And that is a Tim. He doesn't give up. He believes in this. So it's a different sort of approach to getting him to those points, but I felt all those elements were clearly there. And I think the key there is the Penguin thing. You can't diminish the fact that and it clearly is stated in there, he did that to draw out Batman, which put his parents at risk, which is one of the events that makes him humble. His parents' life was changed because of those decisions, because he thought he was a little bit smarter, because he was only thinking, like you said, this guy's got it right. Tim was that guy who was only kind of thinking for himself there. And now he had to be humble because of it. So we get the same character. Events just played out slightly differently to get him to that point. That's what I liked about the story, was at the end of it, I really felt like we've got all the core components of what make Tim Tim. It just played out a little differently to get there. Like Dick Grayson's origin played out a little differently. Like Jason's played out a little differently. Remember, Jason's a character, too, if you look back in his history. The Jason Todd before Crisis on Infinite Earths is very different than the Jason Todd after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Tim Drake, Flashpoint happened. Everything, that storyline that we're talking about, Lonely Place of Dying, that happened still. That happened before Flashpoint. Now, in the new continuity, I'm looking for, at the core, are these characters the same characters that I've known and loved? Did they wind up at the point where I know and love them? This Tim does, at the end, for me. And you don't have to agree with it, but I think clearly the events are playing out differently than you're kind of leaving out some core components to what really happened in that story that I think do set Tim on a different path than you're pointing out, because he wasn't a second-rate hacker with what he did. He laid out a trap that Batman was just a smart enough detective to catch on to. It really was to draw Batman out in the open, and it worked. You can't argue with the results. Batman wound up exactly where Tim wanted him to. Penguin's men wound up exactly where Tim wanted them to. Tim just didn't count on the fact of what this would do with his parents. And I just thought it was something that was a really cool storytelling method to have Tim still trying to pursue who is Batman and being a part of Batman's world, and not to be ignored by Batman when Batman was clearly trying to do it.
And the 1-0 issue, where I can't remember which one, but we saw Tim take down, just through computers, just through his deductive skills, the Dean of Boys who was stealing money.
Yeah.
And Tim not only identified what he was doing, he got the evidence, he got the police, he got him completely arrested. And all that was before he even became Robin, because that was kind of his initial introduction to the Bat family, where he sees, the Bat symbol up in the sky as the bad guy's getting taken away. He's like, yeah, all right. That was like kind of the birth of his desire to be Robin. So we saw right there that his computer skills, we saw his deductive skills. And I also hold on to the fact that he would have figured out who Bruce was. Yeah. Only problem was Bruce in this time wasn't exactly going through the lonely place dying that he was. He was up front, and he was putting up defensive barriers, and he was openly fighting Tim online, throwing him false leads, having to actually deviate Tim's line of thought. And even that, Tim was still able to work around the deception, still able to move around that. So it was an active Batman who was preventing him from figuring it out. In my mind, if they had continued the dance, Tim would have completely figured out who Bruce was, and it would have been through deduction from an outside entity. So that's, again, to me, it didn't take away anything from Tim. As a matter of fact, it kind of showed more of a respect that Bruce had towards his detective skills, that he pulled him in and, okay, you're now in the family. You're now one of us. You're now in the crew. And it was kind of that, I like that fact that it shows a camaraderie, a just level of respect, as well as when Tim starts up the Teen Titans. It was about, hey, there's these other lost children. These are these other heroes, these other things. They need something. They need you. And that was Tim's leaving the Red Robin role of Batman's sidekick to do the Teen Titans thing. So, again, it is, I think, a really positive look at who Tim is, and this is a good expression of his and Bruce's relationship, trust, just they're partners. They're not sidekick and mentor. They're partners in this. And that was something for me that I always liked that feeling from Tim. Yeah, he was much younger. Yeah, he was learning from Bruce, but they always had that equality between the two of them.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting call because, this is a character who, I've been reading him since '89 too. And I the love for him, whether you've been reading him all since the start or you jumped on later, it doesn't matter. It's, there's a love for the character that I think is all, there's fans all over the place that are just really adoring who the character is or have been for years. And I think anytime there's change with characters like that, you're going to have, those trepidations. I'm a little worried about that. I was feeling that way when, they were going to say he was only going to be Red Robin. And my first thought was, I'm going to walk into this issue with an open mind and really see what they're trying to do here. And there were core elements of things that happen in the issue. It's a very different origin. I'm going to agree with him on that 100%. It's a very different origin. But there's core beats in there that I think craft him into the character we've always known him to be. And it happened in a different way because it's a different universe. But at the end, we wind up with Tim Drake. That's what it was for me. At the end, I'm like, do I feel this guy's Tim Drake? And I felt at the end, I'm like, that is Tim Drake. That's who that kid is. And that's because his path had to go a little different to wind up that way. But there were some really core beats there that were pretty essential. And I want to comment on one other thing. Dick Grayson, in his origin, you see him on the computer and using that. And that's just a sign that, in the 5-ish, 7-year time, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely an under a decade timeline for these Robins. There's no way that they wouldn't be a part of a digital world. It was there. So you have to have that. But the question is, who is the better out of the two? I think if you look at the Nightwing Zero issue and you look at the Red Robin Zero, or the Tim Drake Teen Titans Red Robin Zero issue, it's clear that Tim has an edge up on that. That doesn't mean that Dick Grayson's not savvy. It's a different sort of thing to him. Dick Grayson had his own strengths, and I thought they both shined in ways that were unique to them. And that's a key with both of those guys.
Yes.
How you doing, guys? This is Brian calling again. I just got finished reading Earth 2, Volume 5, and I gotta say, man, I am blown away by this book, actually. The amount of action, the things going on with this, I guess you would call them the Justice Society forming. It's become an incredible event with the Green and the Rot. I guess like they're doing an Animal Man. I'm not reading that one yet, but this book was packed with amazing events. I mean, the battle with Adam and how he was shrunk down with the Rot, I guess, consuming him and putting it back into the earth, killing it. It was amazing. Green Lantern, I gotta say, I'm following the Green Lantern main titles. Those and the Bat books are my go-tos, but Earth 2 and Huntress and Power Girl, man, they're getting really good. And I gotta say, I was kind of optimistic about Alan Scott in the beginning, but this issue, man, one, the costume is completely growing on me. I love the artwork in this book. It was breathtaking to see some of the action, especially as a Page kind of Green Lantern leading the charge, blowing straight into Grundy. It was awesome to look at. I love the costume now. I didn't kind of like it at first, but it's grown on me. And now this trip that he's taken into the Earth to talk to the Gray, I mean, it was definitely a weird turn, a wicked twist for him, and the fact that they brought back Sam from the first issue as Dead Lover. I mean, this has definitely got to be a crossroads to see the hero that he's going to be. I mean, you give up your love that you've already kind of, he sacrificed in the first issue. He was dead anyway, but he took this on to avenge Sam, and now he's there. What does he do? And of course, we all know, we hope that he's going to take the good path, which so far the character that they're building with him is great, and I believe he's going to go the good path, of course. And just one question I kind of actually have an issue with on this one. At the end there, Sloane shows up and there's a little conversation, and they were talking about Red Tornado being unfinished. I know Red Tornado, and I have not kept up with the old Justice books. They mentioned Captain Steel is halfway around the world. I'm not too familiar with that character. I was wondering if there's any insight maybe you guys can give me. But tell me how you like the book, how you guys are viewing it. It was incredible. If anybody out there isn't picking up Earth 2 yet, it's a book that you need to get on, because hands down every month this thing has been great. I mean, Zero Issue was awesome, but before that, the way it was going to get back to the main story, it was incredible. So, again, love the show, guys. Keep up the great work.
Well, the JSA Red Tornado was Ma Hunkel in the past. That's not to say that's how it's going to play out in this. I don't know how it's going to play out in this world. I wonder, are we going to get the robot one here? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. It's because we get to see Sandman introduced in the beginning, Wesley Dodds, with a new version of that. And then I'm wondering if Sand, his sidekick's going to come in through that way. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. I like the gradual introduction of concepts that they're doing with this. Like when these characters came together in this issue, and you got to see the Flash there, the Atom there, Hawkgirl there, and Green Lantern at the same time in the same spot. We're 5 issues in. This is the first time we've seen this. What it is you've seen gradual meetings of certain people along the way. But this was the first moment where you're like, oh my gosh, they're all together now. And now we're introducing Sandman. We're introducing the concept of Red Tornado. I like that. To me, these characters matter more because of the way they're introducing him. His recommendation on this book to anybody not reading it, this is easily in my top 5 stack. I'll go as far as to say this. This is in my top 3 stack. If I had to go down to 3 books, Earth 2 would be one of them for sure. Because oh my gosh, this is everything I've loved about these characters since my childhood. And, they're reintroducing them in a new way that's fresh, but when they came together, it was like you so want to see it.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm completely echoing just this is an amazing book. And this has been, again, this birth of this hero and exploration and who they are and who they are going to be, because I don't have as strong a knowledge as you do, as strong as connection with the characters. It's been, the more recent that I started getting into the JSA and who the JSI are and going back and getting past issues. So for me, this is kind of a really great point for me, because this is the birth of the team, the birth of the heroes. And I'm right along with the growth of it and right there. So any new development, new introductions, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And it's funny, I miss people that who they are. And I'm like, I wonder who that's going to be. And sure enough, oh, okay. So and the whole Red Tornado thing, I vaguely remember about Ma Hunkel, but I only, I was, of course, thinking the robot version of Red Tornado, because that's who I'm so used to. So that's where I was thinking they were going to go.
I have a suspicion on this one.
Yeah.
I think it is the robot version of Red Tornado, and I think what's going to happen is it's going to be sent in as a threat to the JSA or a mole in this JSA group or something, and it's going to have to decide whether or not to turn on its creator. It's going to be, I think, Sloan, and maybe they'll do T.O. Morrow in this. I don't know. If they're going to go that route of it. But my thinking was, I wonder if they're going to play that game with it, where Red Tornado comes in not necessarily on the side of the Angels, and events lead to us finding out, that Red Tornado's something more, and that, the conscience or, the being or the entity that's inside Red Tornado causes that turn. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking might be happening with this direction-wise. But the cool part is it's early. Yeah. We're going to see that concept developed over time, and maybe I'll be surprised. It's something totally different. Any way they do it, it's going to be cool, because I didn't expect Red Tornado being thrown in there, and I thought that was neat.
Yes,
so that's what's really cool about it. I care.
Yeah, actually, and that's, I think, the strongest thing we can say about the book and about the team is that we do care about this. We do think about these characters, and it's within 5 issues, we have a strong connection to the team. We have a strong understanding of who these characters are and their core being, their core personality. We can see it, and we want the best out of them. We want them to rise up and shine and be those classic heroes that we've always known and loved, and they were the forefathers to the modern superhero. Well, they're not that anymore. This is just their birth into this. This is who they are going to be, and it's when they first started doing the alternate Earth and they started doing Earth 2, first thought that popped in my head was JLA JSA crossover. And I think that's ran through everybody's head. But now I'm not even just thinking that. I'm thinking, where's this universe going to go? Where are they going to do with this? Who's going to be the next introduction? Where's going to be the next character? What's going to be the next villain they face? Because I have a low knowledge of the classic JSA. I know even less about their classic villains. So that's something I'm kind of excited to see who they're going to go up against next.
I'm in the same place I've always been with JSA, and this isn't meant as a dig on Justice League. This is meant as a compliment to Earth 2. Earth 2 is the better book for me. And I love Justice League right now. Justice League, I think, is a phenomenal book. So it's not a knock on that book, but Earth 2 for me is the book. If you put both of them out in the same week, I'm always going to read Earth 2 first. And that's just my feeling. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just throwing out, like, that's where my head's at when it comes to this book. I'm that into this book. This is very much on that short stack of books that I've got to read. And as a team book in the DC Universe, this is right now my favorite team book in the DC Universe.
See, here's the interesting thing. I love the book. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say love, not like. But I think if you put the two next to me and had the choice between reading the two of them, I would reach for Justice League before JSA.
And that's cool.
Again, it's not a knock on JSA, because I honestly and deeply love it and fully recommend it to anybody, because this is, as I said, this is the birth of this team. You're right now getting on the ground floor and you're getting some really, really cool stories and really beautiful artwork. This is what you want out of a comic book. This is what you want out of a comic book reader. But for some reason, I'm reaching to the JLA, first. I'm reaching for that Justice League, before the JSA. It's right there. It's a close tie. It's a close connection. But if I had to choose one or the other, I would go with the other one.
It's a top quality book. I'm not arguing that. I think as I said, I love the book. But for me, it's Earth 2. And I love that it matters enough to me that I want to say that. And I think that's cool. I do think the cool part about the book is they're both different and unique enough that there's such a validity to both. Neither one of them is cookie-cuttered each other. I get two different experiences. I'm not saying, Justice League, I'm not throwing it under the bus. I love that book. But Earth 2, for me, I've loved these characters. My fondness from this goes back to being a child reading them, All-Star Squadron, reading them there, reading JSA when, Johns and Robinson and crew kicked that off way back. Goyer kicked it way off when it was just such a phenomenal book. And this has that kind of exciting vibe to it. And it goes back to, again, my love for that long-form story, where we're 5 issues in and we're just seeing members of the team coming together now. And that's not because of bad pacing. That's because of great character development that is edgy, that is different, that makes us really know them at the core. When you see Alan Scott at the end with his fiance, again, playing with this whole Green and the Rot thing, they see them together. It was just a very powerful moment. And why? Because we saw the development of that relationship and saw how this has impacted Alan. I love that. It's a home run hit of a book, and it's just fantastic. And I like that I care about each. I love the Flash, his whole concept. I love Hawkgirl. This, honestly, Hawkgirl right now that's my Hawk right now that I'm digging. Because to me, I after reading this book, that's one of the core things that I really love about Hawkgirl. I loved her in JSA when they introduced the Kendra character. And going this route now, I think we're going to get that style of character back with this girl, and I want to see that too. So it's just a cool book across it's hitting all the right beats. And I can't wait to see Mr. Terrific interacting with this team when the time's right. And is he going to be with Red Tornado? What factor is he going to play in that? Because it's going to be him versus Terry.
There's so many mysteries.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you for the call.
Sean and Jim, this is Rick Croxton from the Book Gay podcast. And I see that you're going to be covering the TV series Arrow. Well, my wife and I, we watched it last week, and I can say we both were pleasantly surprised and enjoyed it very much. And it's on our must-see television watching, which very few shows make that distinction. And I've seen a couple of little things that caught my eye. One of the most important ones was Merlin. As you probably already know, that Merlin is a Silver Age villain. And one of the things I did catch, and then I guess we say spoiler alert, that whenever Oliver and Merlin were supposedly being kidnapped, or trying to be kidnapped, I noticed that Merlin was able to recover, not really recover, but looks like he never was under. So he may have an idea of who this hooded guy is. But what is his motivation and what's going on should be interesting to see. And it looks like this week's show may have Black Canary. As you know, she is Donna Laura Lance, who was introduced in the first show. And, of course, a lot of people noticed that on the island there was Deathstroke's mask. So there's a lot of DC hidden little Easter eggs going all over the place. And I can't wait to find out more and see what the next show is. And this is only the first show, and they're already let, several interesting little tidbits out. Of course, there's Speedy, which now is Green Arrow's sister. So, makes you wonder, doesn't it? Little things that make you go, Well, until next time, this is Rick Croxton saying have a good day. Bye for now.
I'm glad to see the love, Jim, for the Arrow series. Because actually people I work with who aren't comic book fans are watching it and finding a lot of love for it. And they're asking, like you talk about a time that actually they know I'm the superhero guy, that I love this kind of stuff. And, they're asking me all kinds of questions about it. And I do think it's a show that has universal appeal to it. And like Rick is mentioning, as we were talking about when we did the episode, there's a lot of great Easter eggs in there for fans. And they continue to be every episode Easter eggs that are put in there for us. Just things that are nice nods to comic book creators. Comic book creators' names are all over the series. And that's great. I think it's a nice little wink and a nod, giving a character a comic book creator name, giving a street a comic book creator name, giving a location that, just throwing in elements that just make it feel more like it's a part of the DC universe for us, while at the same time keeping accessibility. It shows that there's a great way to do that without alienating people. You can give us what we need while giving the newer fans something they need too. It works on multiple levels. It's a show. Did you see it got picked up for the full season?
Woohoo!
Yeah, that tells you how good it's been within the numbers. They were, they had picked up a limited amount, like they do for a new series of episodes, and the hope was that it would generate, and now we're going to get a full season of it. So I hope it continues to generate that and this kind of quality, because I am really digging the show.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm throwing it out to people that I know they're into action, they're into adventure movies and TV shows. I'm like, hey, this has some great physical, stunts, some great physical action, and it's a pretty cool, intriguing, storyline. Plus, you don't have to be a comic book fan. And that's the thing I've been throwing out there, telling people you don't have to be a fan of Green Arrow. You don't have to be a comic book fan to like this show. And no. I guess the one guy said Howard Stern made some comment to it on his show. So there's definitely some love out there for Arrow, and I've been spreading the word, and I'm trying not to go too full on geek mode when I start talking about it, but it's a really great TV show in itself.
Yeah, that's one of the things I recommend for comic book fans to really play up how good this series and with the character development and things like that, because comic book related media, the better it does, the better it is for comics, the better it is for us. Because I'm sure companies start taking a look at putting out more and more comics as a way to test the waters for these type of projects and fan interest for these type of projects. So it really keeps the comic medium going when these series are successful. And I do think, that I think we're a television series, a film away from that one that's going to spark people trying out comics in a big way. And, sometimes you just get that thing that starts something into being a buzz, some trendy thing, when people go retro or something like that. And I want to see that for comics. I really want to see that thing that, whether it's a DC comic or a Marvel or an independent or whatever, that thing that brings people who aren't normally reading back into the medium. That kind of buzz that makes a line interesting and exciting again. And I don't know what it's going to be, but, we're one television show, one film, one something away, video game away from that thing that's going to do that again. Because that's, why my kids still bring into school trading cards. Now, why is the trading card thing significant? They've got all these digital devices and stuff, yet they're still buying packs and packs and packs and boxes of collectible cards. All right, and they're various different kinds. It's not just Pokemon. There's tons of different kinds that are out there doing them. So, that craze caught back on again in a digital era, okay, where you don't need paper and cardboard and stuff like that. Comics can have that. They can get that resurgence again. I know that a lot of times when you say that, people go, comics aren't going to have that again. I disagree. I think we are just one project away from that thing that is going to generate that interest for comics again and bring in a new audience base to it. And I want to see that project happen. And, Arrow's one of those projects that will keep people keeping an eye on this media. It adds some validity to this media because it's fresh, it's different. It's not Smallville again, because I loved Smallville. Smallville was great. And you mentioned the Howard Stern. Howard Stern was a big fan of Smallville. And then, he's a big superhero fan in general. Mentions it constantly on his show. He watches all the superhero films and TV shows and stuff like that. And, he was giving a big shout-out to Arrow, which I thought was kind of cool. So, I don't know. I just think anything that gives attention to this type of series, when it's good, I don't know, blind loyalty to it. It's, when stuff like this I think the series is terrific. And it's not because it's a DC series, because it's on its own, it's a really good series.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, I want to talk about Green Lantern New Guardians number 0. I really liked how this 0 issue was crafted because I've referenced before, we've talked about these 0 issues, how I liked things like Jeff Johns' Secret Origins when he's done those, because they'll take a classic concept from the past, and when they're retelling like an origin portion of somebody, they'll add new content in that further advances the modern day storytelling. This did this with bringing Tom and Carol in and then Kyle in, showing us Kyle's origins, his backstory and stuff like that, but also building a relationship between him and Carol, she's now going to be the Star Sapphire in this book. And it shows a motivation as far as why she would become the Star Sapphire and involved in this. And also, why he would be the Green Lantern in this. It's building these are two characters we have not seen partnered up. Her lost love is missing. He, on the other hand, is dealing with the fact that he was the torchbearer. And he's got this thing going on with his ring where he's able to, connect with the entire spectrum. And for the coming battle, he needs to deeply connect with that. But I love the clarification of Kyle's story and what from his past, and just really how much of it is deep in canon. Still with the woman in the refrigerator and all that kind of stuff. They didn't throw any of that out the window. Alex, his girlfriend, which I thought that she was always a motivating factor for him, and getting rid of her would have been a huge mistake.
Oh, yeah. And you're kind of slipping some of issue 13 as well as we're talking.
I know.
But yeah,
we're talking.
I'm nodding my head in sentiment with you because I did think that 0 and 13 go so well together. And it was funny, as we were getting ready for this, I got to, once again, reread before talking. So it's kind of fresh in my head. And that was, again, I love just going boom, boom from one to the other because 0 shows those two together. 13 shows a further, teamwork, development of them. As then we have some more of Kyle's backstory. These were two great issues that really flowed well together. And I complete sentiment as you're talking, how I love seeing Kyle, just the whole torchbearer thing really coming to fruition with now he's accessing other rings, through his ring, through himself, however and whatever he's doing. I love seeing this connection to the other cores. I love seeing that there is again, it's showing us a future of what may happen next, where this is coming down, and why this is a new Guardians book. It's not just Green Lantern. This is about multiple color spectrum. And throughout the stuff before the Zero issue, this was a multiple color title. And I'm really enjoying this distinction between Green Lantern Corps, Red Lanterns, New Guardians. Each book has their feel, but they're all part of the same universe. And I love that connection.
Yeah, I'm with you. I loved the bits in the beginning with Carol in issue number 0, where you see her and Tom together and opening up the ring, finding out that Hal was going to propose. What does that mean for the two of them? You know, and this only increases her love for Hal. And, you know, for them, you know, for years she's wondered how serious Hal is, and now she knows, okay, he's very serious. That was so cool. Seeing the Black Lanterns here and having validation that Blackest Night happened. I know we've had that, but I think now seeing this in the new 52 era being brought out again, I thought was something great. Seeing how Carol and Kyle, when they're together, because they can use their rings together, would then be able to take down the Black Lanterns, I thought was really cool. And again, like I said, I know I'm blending 0 and 13 together, but I loved how this wound up being such a kickoff for this buddy cop thing between two people we've never seen together before. And, you know, Kyle clearly saying to himself, Carol, you've got your own motivations, you're after Hal. But Carol's not wired that way. She does also care about what's going on with Kyle. And I love that this is kind of it's establishing who both of these characters are right now in the new 52. It's establishing a new team-up relationship between the two of them. Where is their relationship going to go from here? What is that going to be like? How are they going to get together with the New Guardians? That's something that, as we're seeing each piece to the puzzle and how Carol's being a confidant who Kyle can talk rationally with. Because with the other color cores, that's not always possible. And I like him having this person that he can talk to, that he can rely on, which is really cool. Because he's not going to get that from Larfleeze, that's for sure.
No, and even with Saint Walker being as cool as he is, there's still a human-alien relationship. There's not that same human-type connection. So, you know, seeing Kyle and Carol together is it's a good combo. It's a good team-up. And I like just, you know, seeing Kyle's progression through this. We get some more of his backstory. We see a lot that, you know, was canon is still there. A lot of the core that is Kyle is still there. That same personality. So I'm like, okay, this is, you know, again, more validation for the people that I know, that I understand are still out there. Yeah, the universe is tweaked, has changed a little bit, but there's still just who they are is still there. And I love the fact that in 13, he starts trying to access the rage, and he starts accessing that, and just, you know, bringing in Atrocitus to this, and they both have a common enemy, so Atrocitus is going to work with him. He is going to help him develop that because he knows this will strike down the Guardians. We saw in his 0 issue and his 13 that where his true and his passion against, you know, the Guardians are and why it's there. So yes, he's going to team up with Kyle. Yes, he's going to work with Kyle because Kyle is no longer a lapdog to the Guardians. He knows this. He's not a mindless brute. So I love the fact that seeing him in there and working Kyle and just working Kyle's emotions.
Well, especially, I mean, we're kind of jumping around a little bit. Back on Planet Earth, you know, when that whole scene, you know, with that kid and the family translated in Arabic, and Kyle just having to watch that, and Atrocitus's past being brought in, and then you see the rage kick in, where seeing that guy gunned down, seeing what's going on with the kid, brings out that side. And I love the manifestation of what it looks like with Kyle when he's got the rage out there. It's its own unique look. And Kyle's one of those guys that, being able to skirt the line between emotions, to go to that place, a place that he's never been before, even with Alex's death, would change him and would scar him. And I loved when he was talking to Carol, you know, that was something after that fact, you know, sitting there saying, you know, you happy now? You asked him to do that? This is something, a place that he went to that he is not comfortable with.
Well, you think about it, his loss of his love didn't enrage him like it did, you know, Atrocitus. His was sadness. His was that he missed that love. He, missed that, that person that, believed in him and brought out what was good in him. It wasn't about anger over her loss. It was more about sadness. And it's, again, that shows Kyle's character. It shows who Kyle is. But it was the injustice. It was seeing that, the father getting gunned down, the little kid being forced to watch this. It was all of those things that brought out the rage in Kyle, that brought out that anger, that brought out that fire. Because that is how Kyle is. It's not about his own personal pain. It's about others in pain. It's that hero side of Kyle. It's that romantic side of Kyle.
We see in that Space Sector 2819 at the end of the issue, and we'll go back, and there's things we have missed, but seeing those aliens being taken over, I think it's one of the things I'm really liking about this rise of the Third Army is just how far spread it is. It's not about attacking Earth. It's about taking over all the free will in the universe. And that's something that's really adding a creep factor to this whole thing that I'm really digging.
Yeah, this is coming across to me that the Guardians are conquering the universe. It's not about just providing a police force, providing safety. They're going one step beyond what the Manhunters were.
Order. They're bringing order. The question is the way that they're bringing order. Yeah,
that's just like they've crossed the line into villain now. They are, and it's, you can say, well, they have good intentions, but they're just executing them poorly. I'm saying no, they're beyond good intentions executing poorly. I'm wondering if there's a corruption going on in the Guardians themselves.
I don't think it's good or bad intentions. I think the problem with them is their focus is on order at any cost, which means free will is, they think, an outmoded concept. So they are going to alter everyone. Well, I get that is bad intentions then. It's clearly bad intentions. But what I'm saying is I don't think they would look at it as bad intentions. They would look at it as we are finally going to bring order to the universe. Not peace either, order. And I'm really clear, because sometimes you'll say, well, you bring order to a conflict, you'll bring peace, and that's a good thing. In this case, they're not concerned about that. They're concerned about the universe is basically, in their eyes, gotten out of control due to the eruption of the various emotional spectrums. They feel like bringing order back will bring control. Now, order and control do not need and usually don't have a compassion component to them, unless you've got a balance in there, and they don't have that. That's where I think this whole topic gets interesting, because they're definitely the bad guys in the whole thing, but they wouldn't see themselves that way. They'd see themselves as being and they wouldn't see themselves as being the hero of the universe either. They would logically be bringing order to the universe, fixing what's wrong with the universe, making it order-filled and right and logical. It's very Vulcan.
Yeah, they're evil Vulcans.
Yeah, for lack of a better term. I want to go back and talk about issue 0 when we see the hope, the blue light from Kyle, because he and Carol are being overrun by, not the Black Lanterns, but the Dead Rising from what happened with Black Mask and what was going on. Not Black Mask, I'm sorry.
Black Hand.
Black Hand, yeah, I'm thinking Batman with Black Hand. And when they were rising in that moment, they are being overwhelmed and overrun. And he gets separated from Carol. And when that happens, he's in this moment. I love this. Carol, where are you? Please, God, I can't do this alone. Help me find her. Give me a sign. Give me. And then click hope, which Kyle has had experience with before. So having hope brought in and being able to connect with that emotion is something that Kyle's more comfortable with. I wonder, is he going to have trouble tapping into Larfleeze's emotion the same way? Does he have a greed component to him or not? I don't know. What other emotional spectrum is he going to have trouble connecting with, and how is he going to do that? I'm curious to see how this all plays out.
See, what I'm worried about is, we've seen him tap into hope. We've seen him tap into rage. They're going on to fear. Mm-hmm. Now, he's starting to lose his love component. So I'm assuming next will be a compassion, which I could see Kyle, having access to compassion. And, but will after going through everything, after going through all these trials, will he still be able to latch into love? Will he still be able to do that? Because I'm assuming he needs to get all of them together. They all have to be in one focus, one point. And it can't be all but one, and then she provides the last piece. So it's going to be kind of curious to see that last bit, because I'm assuming as the path goes down, he's going to go further and further down the rabbit hole. And can Carol help pull him back? Can his love that's in his heart help pull him back? I don't know. And it lays out just curiousness of who Kyle is, because his personality is just, these lanterns are so different. And John Stewart, was really a solid, one of my favorite lanterns. I always like how they use him and where they came from. Kyle I thought he was a cool lantern, but he was always on the bottom of my list. But I got to admit, getting more of an insight to him, seeing more of him in action, seeing more of his style, I'm liking the character more. And I want to see Kyle rise up. I want to see Kyle, do something.
The Kyle I know will overcome this.
Yeah.
See, that's where it's going to be. But that's where it's going to be interesting. Is we know that for those of us that have read Kyle back in his old run, know that Kyle is, if he's handled right, which he's going to be in this, is the type of character who can rise up beyond that. But what's more interesting in that is how. How is he going to do that? That to me is interesting and fun.
Yeah. Now, in the Zero issue, it's kind of neat. When Carol has her prophecy and her visions, we see the variations of Kyle in the different colors. And you do see that rage red Kyle that we do see in issue 13. So you see him going through the full color spectrums.
Oh, yeah, but that's because it's, like you said, a premonition of what's to come. And I love seeing all of them, the different variations on his costume that are unique to Kyle. That, to me, I think is really kind of a neat little twist with all this. I'm glad it's Kyle that's going through this. He seems like the one that should be, right? I mean, this isn't something I see Hal going through, or John, or Guy. It doesn't make as much sense as it does when Kyle's doing it.
Well, again, it's Kyle's personality. I can see him embracing the different emotions. I can see him. Hope is something I so completely see in him, and same thing with the love side. I can, he's that romantic type person. He is that, kind of, it's funny, I don't want to say he's the softer, gentler of the Green Lanterns, but he is more of a sensitive soul.
Sure.
He's got that artist soul in him, so I can see him embracing that side. But there is the warrior in him. There is the rage. There is the fire. So he is a great, piece to have all that together.
I love the character, and I think this is really just a great use for him. One of the things that I think the Green Lantern universe has been particularly terrific with is finding a way to continue to spotlight. And if anything, I think they're getting even better with it. Each of the lanterns. It's when you've got so many Earth-based Green Lanterns. I'm talking about the Earthbound ones. When you've got so many of them, to continually find a way to spotlight them is hard to do. You know what lantern I miss? Sornik.
Yeah.
I really miss her. I love that in this book there's lanterns that they're not using right now that I miss. That just shows how well they've crafted so many of the lanterns in these series that you actually do care about those characters and when they're not around. Because I think they've developed some really great characters.
And that could be one of the ways to bring out the love in him. That could be, she could make her appearance.
Or what if it is Carol that brings it out in him?
Yeah, I don't know.
And what does that do?
Complicates things greatly.
You want to talk a little Green Lantern Corps number 13?
Oh, God, yeah. But here's one thing, though.
Oh, you got something more? Okay.
Yeah. Just the Star Sapphire people.
Mm-hmm. Zamorans.
The Zamorans, thank you. With them and the Guardians doing their, kind of their merging unions or, I guess, truce treaty between the two of them.
Well, they've been together before. They were, in the past, lovers.
So. That's the thing I was wondering. Because I was wondering if they're after removal of emotions, why are they still going to allow love to be in the universe?
Well, and is that what they're going to do? It sounds like...
Or is it going to be a double cross?
No, I think that they're going along with the Guardians and going to the let's bring order back to the universe. They are connecting with them again and saying what we were doing was failed, so let's eliminate all of it and bring order back to the universe. I think they're going to see it the same way. I hope it's a double cross, but who knows?
Yeah, because I can't see just if they're either side of them. I see them both trying to double cross on each other. Because on either side, if the one is embracing emotion, the other one's saying no emotion, you're going to have an issue.
But what if what if the Zamorans are no longer doing that? What if they are seeing things the Guardians' way?
Okay.
See, I guess I was taking it more that they're... First of all, let me clarify. I'm not totally discounting your idea that it's a possibility that one side or the other could swerve each other, or along the way, even if they start off being on the same page, that won't change it somewhere along the line. But there is that other part of me that's wondering what if bringing them back together again is all of them seeing the same thing, and maybe this is time for... Maybe the core has outgrown... All of the cores have outgrown the need for any form of Guardians.
Yeah, see, in the end, I see that as being the case, where
too.
there will be no more Guardians, ever. And I don't know how they'll be destroyed, or they'll be banished, they'll be something. But I think we're going to run into this intergalactic police force without the Guardians. And we'll have the Red Lanterns, who, well, they don't have a Guardian right now, and the Yellow Lanterns don't have a Guardians. And where this is going to take place with all the different colors. Like, Blue has lost their planet. They've lost their central battery. Are they long for survival, or will Hope survive?
All will be well, Jim. All will be well. Here's my question. There's been reference in multiple issues now of the fact that these Third Army members are linked. To what? To who? What is linking them together?
See, I was thinking it's the direct connection to the Guardians themselves.
Or is there a central source that the Guardians are controlling?
Could be.
Part of me wondered if it was Mogo, and that's why they want John. I mean, I know I'm kind of jumping in a little bit into Green Lantern Corps here.
Well, let's jump into Core 13, because I got a theory on that as well.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. I'm saying part of me is thinking that. Another part of me is thinking about what if, there's some other link down here? What if the whole First Lantern thing was not a throwaway? What if the First Lantern's the central focus of all that?
Yeah, that race that kind of got screwed over by the Guardians.
Right. What
if they are the actual? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
One of them's the link or something. I don't know. So it's an interesting puzzle. So I don't know that I have a set theory where I'm like, this is what I'm digging in. I don't really, but I'm enjoying speculating on this linkage between them. Is it directly to the Guardians, or is it directly to something or someone under the Guardians' control? And they'll be curious to see if that's explained, because I'm interested. I want to know. And that's part of a great storyline as well, when you've got this creep factor and you're kind of curious as to what is making them symbiotic and linked to each other.
Here's my theory on that.
Go ahead.
With every time we get one of these members of the Third Armies, I think in that other world where they were, if you remember back, there used to be like a lantern buried in the ground, and that was energizing the plan. Mm-hmm. I think we're now getting a body buried into the ground, and that's the connection. It's one of their citizens per one entity, of the Third Army.
So you think there's that many bodies?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of bringing them back, and they're making sacrifices so they can come back, but it's controlled by the Guardians see themselves in control. Maybe the Guardians will get screwed over in the end, and there'll be a double cross that way. Who knows? I keep seeing double crosses and twists and turns, and who knows? It may be something as simple as they blow up something, or there could be some complex flip-flop and sealing of universes and whatnot that cause it. I don't know. And every time I read a new issue, I think of something different. But one of the things I'm solid with those First Lanterns, that they are either their bodies, their remains, their essence, or something. That's what's creating this Third Army.
Yeah. It's to me, I still think it's a single thing, single entity. But that's my take on it. It doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm speculating, so I don't know. I don't know that I'm thinking there's, because where would they be? I guess that's what I'm having trouble seeing, where these bodies would go that you're mentioning. I don't know where they'd be.
Well, I'm thinking back on their home world or their home dimension. Do you remember when they showed that where the lanterns were planted? I think that's the connection. I think that field itself, and it connects to like a central battery that's there that populates to this universe. It's like that's the gateway.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And this is a guess on my part.
No, and so is mine. So the way I look at it is, one of us could be right, both of us could be horribly wrong.
I'm guessing we're both horribly wrong.
It's
wonderful.
I'm leaning with you on that. This Green Lantern Corps 13 has got a great start, because you see that race out in space, and, you know, they're working on getting rid of, the asteroid. All of a sudden, the Third Army comes in and starts, like, assimilating them. I always liked the Borg on Star Trek. I always liked the Cybermen in Doctor Who. And I look at this as, like, the Green Lantern version of that, you know, but jacked up with a modern horror twist. Not that those didn't have a horror twist, but, you know, it's just kind of... You can take those ideas and reimagine them and just make them creepy and fresh in a way that's different, that makes this just as valid as either of those two options as well. Anytime you're simulating, because you're giving up freedom and opportunity. And that's one of those things, like, my free will was probably one of the most horrifying things to lose. And here's my question. Does the creature in there still have any idea of what's going on? Or are they completely done? We don't know that yet. You know what I'm saying? Is there somebody trapped in there that's really buried, subconsciously very deep, and they kind of are witnessing what's going on around them? Like, is this a shell covering them, or are they completely lost?
I read it as they're completely lost, that they're gone and done. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, but
how do we know?
Who knows what is actually left of that person? If there's a piece of them left, if there's a conscious, maybe that can be pulled out, that can be saved. But I don't see that happen. I see once you're turned, and that's it. It's done and over with. And
I see it that way too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I see them coming back, but to me, a much more horrifying thing is being trapped watching all this. Although I don't see the Guardians being motivated to have that as a part of this, because their idea is to bring order, not to leave. I guess I'm kind of correcting myself and saying I don't see the Guardians having a motivation to leave any form of consciousness there. Their idea is really to stamp out anything that would be an emotional link.
Yeah.
You know, to bring back order. So there wouldn't really be a reason to have that be a flaw. Why would you do that?
Yeah, that would just open up a weakness, and they're trying to eliminate any and all human emotional weaknesses. So if this new army is their quote-unquote perfect version, they're not going to have that. This is a completely just autonomous, society. It's kind of like the Manhunters version 2.0. This is the upgraded version. Instead of a robot, it's living flesh, but it's not living flesh.
What is it with the Guardians when they do like these upgraded titles? There's usually some backhanded thing that happens with it. They do the Alpha Lanterns, and they end up being like creepy to a major level. Then you get Lantern Sentinel, and they're using this as a way to really screw over Gardner.
Yeah.
I really like this. I like how you knew like this is not going to end well, but yet it really does honor him in a way you can see why he'd believe it, because this plays into Guy's ego. Guy wants to be acknowledged. Guy wants to be known. Wants to be a part of us. I don't know. I really loved how this played out because it plays up into who we know Guy to be. That pat on the back would be something Guy to be like, finally, I'm being noticed and that type of thing. And you could see this being their way, yet their rationale for acknowledging him makes sense. He really did do these things. So they're not just blowing smoke. That's it works on multiple levels where you can see why Guy would believe in it as well. It's not out of the realm of possibility for the Guardians to ignore him on this, and Guy's reaction is typical Guy. So that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about this as well, that it felt like something where you're like, I can see why he'd fall for this.
Oh, big time. And that's one of the believabilities behind what the Guardians are doing. They're doing beautiful puppet mastery where they're playing everybody off of each other. They got the Green Lantern Corps to get rid of the Alpha Lanterns by having the whole thing with Jon Stewart. Now that there's no more Alpha Lanterns for them to deal with, they're now getting rid of Guy. They've gotten rid of Hal. They got rid of Sinestro. They're identifying these powerful forces that can take them down and that could rise up and stop them, and they're eliminating them. And that is just a great strategy that the Guardians are doing. As much as I hate them, as much as I want to see someone just lay the smack down on them, I gotta respect the level of, you gotta respect the evil, the villains that are actually really good planners. They got a good strategy going here. You gotta respect just what they're doing and how they're doing it. I don't respect what they're doing, but the process behind it. There's some definite planning in there. This is an intelligent villain, which makes the heroes have to stand up even stronger and taller to fight against them.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's part of the strengths of this whole thing, is that I think out of this, we are going to see people step up. We are going to see a new imagining of this. What kind of hierarchy do you create after this if the Guardians are gone? That's what ends up happening. I don't see Ganthet being rescued here, although what if he could be?
I remember Jeff Johns had a comment at one of the panels where he's like, we're going to see Ganthet come back. This isn't a permanent thing. There's going to be that moment when the Guardians are going to think Ganthet's in there, with them, and he's going to say, "Oh no, I'm not," and we'll see Ganthet come back. But that could be the ending of the Guardians. Ganthet could sacrifice himself to stop everything. So we may be losing all of our Guardians, and we'll have a Corps who has, the leadership will be the different Corps members. You have these honor guard, you have these veterans, you have these guys that people respect and look up to and say, okay, we know what we have to do. This is what we got to do. Let's go with it. And, that's where I see the future of the Green Lanterns going, which I'm kind of curious to see it play out that way without having Guardians around.
I liked in this, when guys being honored, I love this commentary that's going on. Gardner's lucky Jordan's not around to steal his thunder. Shut up, guy deserves this. Coming from a Lantern whose ass he saved from execution. Don't make me turn around, poozers. This dialogue between them where they're bickering. Proof, again, this is part of what the Guardians are doing. Create dissension in the ranks. Divide the Corps so that way they can't band together and become a bigger problem. They know the strengths of their Corps. They also know that when the Corps is operating against each other and they're not brought together as a unified team, they are much weaker. So they're going after psychological warfare as well as physical warfare with these. And I really like that they know their Corps that well. It's a brilliant strategy.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's, again, a divide and conquer is a standard we're seeing here. I love the fact that with John, with their giving him the task of helping Mogo, become together again. And I completely took it as, again, divide and conquer, one, getting him away, but two, distracting him. John's focus is going to be solely on getting Mogo back together again. I think, and that's the main reason they have him out there.
Well, and here's the thing. Are they part of Mogo coming back, or is Mogo really constructing himself? I'm hoping Mogo's really constructing. I'm hoping that's legit, and they're figuring that, this will get John Stewart out of the way long enough for us to be able to say, I don't know. But there's that part of it. I like Mogo. I like the concept of Mogo, so I am hoping Mogo's coming back on some level. That this really is a legit thing that's going on.
Yeah, I completely took it that's all Mogo pulling himself back together again. That it's hard to kill a planet, and he's proving, okay, there's something more to Mogo, and he's pulling himself back together again.
You can get a good deal on Mogo now because he's a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
But that's something that was really cool with the whole Guardians there, because I could see that being another one that goes either way. I like when Guy is flying around with that lantern that John Vandor, lantern that John had saved. It's because I loved his defense of John, saying, I was there. Nobody else was. I saw what was happening and how he was giving up the codes to the Corps and setting everyone up at risk. And John had to make the decision to save all of the lives, take one to save all. Do you agree with what John did?
It's such a tough call for me, because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I completely agree with what he did, and he had to do it. And that other side of me wishes that something could have been done differently. And
would you condemn him for it?
Oh, God, no.
Neither would I. Yeah, I couldn't do what he did. I know that, but I don't know that I think he was wrong in what he did. I think he was in a situation where he had no other choice. And based on personality and my own experience, I'm not John. I haven't been through the life experiences that John has. Where John was making a decision to say, he was a military guy, he was making a decision to say, I've got to do this. It's important to, in the field, we don't speak. We don't say more than name, rank, and serial number. We don't let out information that can compromise. And, that's a soldier stepping up and saying that. So I get that, and I thought that was pretty cool, because I understood where he's coming from. I know it's not what I would do, but I also didn't feel this need to condemn him. I'm like, I get it. I do think if I was a friend of his, it might put a strain on our friendship, because I do think that becomes now an awkward elephant in the room where that this person killed and did it on purpose, and he killed one of our own. How do you not be affected by that? You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah.
So it's a weird twist, and that's one of the things I like about the story. Is I think the way it's being portrayed is very realistic to what would actually happen. You know, you would have people that side with him, but don't know what to do, don't know how to be comfortable around him again. I mean, you even see John. John's not comfortable around anybody since this. Even Guy. There is tension there. Not tension so much as just this like awkward cloud that's around him. It's really thick for some, but it's very light for others. But it's still, the cloud's there for everybody.
Yeah. I would like to think if this was real and I was a member of the Green Lantern Corps, the way I would handle it is I would have walked up to John and said, yeah, I don't agree with what you did, but, you know, and I'd still stick out my hand and say, but I'll fight alongside you. You know, I wish there was something else you could have done, but I'm not going to judge you for it. Because I do understand, it's a tough place he was put into. And I couldn't say, yes, I can condone him killing him, but I wasn't there. I can't say how I would react. I can't say that, you know, if I wasn't in his shoes, I would do the exact same thing. It's a situation that unless you're actually there, you can't make the call. And it's a difficult thing to say or do. It's, you know, it brings out such an emotional response, just sitting here thinking about it, talking about it, even putting it in a modern connotation. What if, you know, someone were to break into my house and try to kill me? Could I kill them to protect myself? Could I kill them if my, you know, niece was visiting and she was in danger? You know, what about my parents? What about this? You know, what would I do? How would I handle it? You know, if I was kidnapped and, you know, or the two of us were kidnapped, and, you know, could I kill to protect you? Could I kill if you were going to give up the great secret code of raging bullets? I don't know. There's such a different levels of consequences and ramifications to actions and inactions that it's hard to say what I would do. But in the end, I know John Stewart, and I trust John Stewart. And if I was in battle, if I was fighting, I'd want him alongside me, and I'd want him there, and I'd want to convey that emotion with him. That if we're ever in the you know, the heat of battle, you're the guy I want watching my back.
Yeah, and I would see that. It just, that relationship would never be the same with me. I know that. I think I would like to think I would do what you would do too. Understanding the situation. It's one of the terrible things about being in a position where I think police run into this. I think anybody who's in a position, military run into this, obviously, in a position where you could potentially kill somebody, and you do. That changes you. You know, it's on some level. And in this case, it was a huge distinction because John already had this stigma on him because of what happened with Mogo.
Yeah.
And then, you know, comes to this, and it's more validation that this is who he is. I don't know. I think it's a great storytelling tool. I love that, you know, again, Jon Stewart's getting in the spotlight, and I do feel like it's not uncharacteristic of who this character has been established to be. And that's the problem. That's the part where I get like really, really fun.
And how cool is it that this is still playing out?
Oh yeah.
And it's not even just a direct play out; it's reaction from it, then re-reaction, then extra stuff added onto it. It's, again, it adds to the realism of who the Green Lantern Corps is, who this is. This is an actual true to life entity that we're talking about alien races. We're talking about intergalactic police force that has a ring that creates whatever you think about. And we're saying realistic in the same sentence without batting an eye or hesitating. I love that part of these stories. I love just that realism and that, you know, that sense of, you know, yes, I could see this happening. I love that.
I like the Guardian strategy here, actually, with Guy. Send him on this diplomatic mission, release Czar, and use Czar as a way to discredit Guy. Again, causing dissension, because now you're going to have some members of the team going with Guy, some going the other way. I think the thinking was with the Guardians, let's send Guy over here, have Guy taken over and killed, you know, or made into one of the members of the Third Army. But if he survives, we've automatically discredited him for what he's saying and doing.
Oh, big time. And you can see it like, Gardner, he's so predictable. They knew exactly once the bad guy was out, you know, he would go running off to Earth to protect his family. And here you go. Now send him over to kill the diplomats. He's going to kill all the Green Lanterns that are there, because the Guardians are probably going to give the Green Lanterns weaponry to stop him. They're gonna, give him specialized things that maybe drain the energy from the rings or do whatever that he's gonna do, because they need him to kill everybody there, including those lanterns, which will turn other lanterns against Guy. And if Guy somehow survives the Third Army, maybe people won't even believe him. Maybe people won't even think, hey, what the heck? He abandoned his post and all these people got killed. No, they didn't get killed. They got turned into these blue army dudes or whoever this alien, thing. Like, yeah, sure, Gardner, whatever you're saying. And Guardians, will do it's no record of it in the Book of Oa, so they don't actually exist. Hey, let's look at your ring. Your ring log shows that you flew to Earth, and didn't see anything. I completely see, beyond just discrediting. They're probably going to tweak with the stuff and make it look like Guy is making all this stuff up, because I don't think they want people knowing about the Third Army yet.
That's one of the things that I think is awesome about the story and the way the Third Army is being developed, is we're seeing a lot of them, but it's being done in such a hit-and-run fashion and so widespread when it's doing it that they're attacking people out in space. They're attacking people in confined areas. They're attacking people. It's being done over large amounts, and the Third Army is growing in numbers, but the army is being developed in secret, like you're mentioning. So when they're finally being unleashed, like now the cat's out of the bag, because Guy knows. Now we've got a big problem, because we've got one of the big, Lantern Honor and Lantern Sentinels knowing this. But now this guy's been discredited anyway, so he's got bigger fish to fry. How can we believe Guy when the ambassador was taken down? And how are the other Lanterns going to feel about that when that comes about? And you didn't come back with, Vandar? Because Vandar...
I think we're going to lose more than just Vandar.
Oh, out of this batch?
Yeah, I think Guy's going to be the only one who comes back.
Well, that's probably one of the intentions. But just a really, I think, great ending to the issue. Again, another one of those oh my god moments. I'm curious to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, and I tell you, the Vandor transformation really we talk about creepiness with these guys. They're ripping off his arms like they did with the Red Lanterns to separate him from the rings. His head is exploding out, and it's just violent and just nasty. And you see him, Guy, kill me, don't let. And then he, the head explodes and he turns into one of them. And I was like, oh man. It's that kind of that surreal creepiness and just that moment of, like with the zombie movies, there are shows that you watch when someone gets bit. Hey, don't let me turn. Kill me. Kill me now before I turn over. And same type of deal going on here. And of course, it's too late because he's already made the transformation. So I was like, oof.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about it is I like that he even said to Guy, he was pleading with Guy to do what John Stewart had done to the guy sitting next to him. Like, this is where you need to step up and do this. And John Stewart had been there, he probably would have done it.
Yeah, I think John could have maybe pulled, but that's the thing. These things are immune to the Green Lantern rings.
Right.
So we're going to need them to do
but what happens if you catch him? What happens if you catch him early enough in the transformation?
Right.
We don't know that.
Or you take him down before the actual transformation when it's that point of no return where they're not going to, you can't save them. So you put them out of the misery.
Yeah. It's an interesting story.
Oh, God, yeah. And when they first started talking about the Third Army, we had no idea what they were going to be, where it's going to go. And we're issues into this. We're getting the rise of the Third Army. So we're getting the first part of the Third Army War. And you still don't completely know where they are, but every time we get a little taste of it, I'm like, yeah, I want more. Yeah. It's a building that anticipation. It's building the excitement. It's the what if this, what if this, what if this? And in the end, we'll get the answer, and it'll may be different. It may be the same. It may be something we haven't even vaguely thought of yet. And I love that. I love just the unknown.
Holy caffeine!
Please remember to check out our show website, ragingbullets.com. We are also available on Facebook. We have a regular Facebook page and a wonderful Facebook group. We are on Google+. We're on Twitter. Actually, I have the Twitter feed linked right to our website, so anytime we do updates on our website, you can get it right from our Twitter as well. We love interacting with you, so please make sure to be a part of us on the social media circuit. We really, really love it. I want to particularly shout out our Facebook group. We just have a wonderful group of people there that I really enjoy having conversations with, debating with. That's what comics are all about. It's those conversations we want to have at the comic shop that, because we're all around the world and separate from each other, we don't have the opportunity to have those conversations. Please remember also to use our social media sources as a way to promote anything that you're doing. If you've got a comic, if you've got a blog, if you've got a podcast, feel free. Remember, they're all comic fans on our site, and, they're people that want to know, hey, what podcast should I be checking out? What book should I be checking out? Things like that. I consider that an open source. You're a friend of ours. We want to promote you. And if there's a link you want on our website and it's not there, please email me, ragingbullets@gmail.com. I want to get that on our website. I'm a big fan of cross-promotion, and anytime I can do something like that is really just a pure pleasure. So I want to thank everyone for their support of the show. Over at our sponsors, dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Over at dcbservice.com. Like I said, they're a pre-order source. I love them because at 40% off for most of my books, you're taking a $2.99 book, it's now $1.79. I read a lot of material across comics, and one of the reasons why I'm able to do that is of great sponsors like dcbservice.com. So if you haven't checked out their website, go over there and start browsing to see, how you could save money. Punch up your budget and see how much you're spending every week. Say to yourself, wow, look what else I could be reading with that budget. Over at instocktrades.com. Absolute Green Lantern Sinestro Corps War hardcover. $99.99 regularly, 40% off, only $59.99. Remember, with the free shipping, you're actually getting free shipping on that book. And if you haven't picked up an Absolute Edition, this is a good one to start with because it's just a beautiful, beautiful book experience. So I want to thank dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. It's actually really great when we get listener feedback where people see things a little differently than us. We have a chance to respond and have that little dialogue interaction between it. We don't all have to agree. You and I don't always agree. But it's always fun to have that kind of dialogue and interactivity where people can get their thoughts out there. And our next episode, Jim, we are going to be discussing Superman, Supergirl, Superboy. We're going to be discussing the new direction of Superman, discussing some of the Zero issues that have come out from these books, and also taking a look at the new crossover that's going on in the Superman books. So it's going to be all Superman next week as we continue our look at the new 52. We will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see